Aurora floated slightly above the ground, her wings spreading wide as if declaring war on the heavens themselves. Hell's choir, her newly acquired skill, activated. A haunting melody rang out, each note laced with curse magic and despair. It was a sort of mental corruption skill, a very high-level one at that. Paladins and clerics fell to their knees, clutching their heads, their faith unraveling under the weight of her song. Wherever her gaze landed, sacred shields shattered and chaos ensued. A group of holy knights tried to rally, charging toward her with light-forged spears, but before they could reach her, Damon flickered back into visibility, a wall of blood spears erupting from the ground to skewer half their ranks. The remaining few barely had time to scream before a wave of corrupted divine energy slammed into them, sending their broken bodies tumbling like ragdolls. "Did you see that, blood god?" Aurora giggled, spinning midair as a barrage of black feathers rained down. Each feather struck like a high-tier spell, impaling mages and blowing holes through enemy lines. "What do you think of my new skills?" Damon didn't reply. He was too busy grinning like a lunatic, slashing, blinking, dodging, feeding his bloodline, and growing more monstrous with every kill. The bodies were endless, and there was so much he could take. He sucked in all the blood essence he could without holding back in the slightest. It was a grand feast. Blood Rain was also thoroughly enjoying herself. Her voice echoed in his mind, filled with gleeful laughter, happy to be in the midst of chaos and carnage. Not to be outdone by these two, Erin was unleashing her own brand of hell on the massive army. The vampires in this army were barely a fraction of the whole attack force, and yet they were holding their own thanks to Damon and the three women. On the side, there was another key player, but right at this moment, he was sweating bullets. Necrogod stared at the two ridiculously beautiful women surrounding Damon. He couldn't see the face of the third one clearly, but he had no doubt that she was a beauty as well. All three were not just beautiful, but they were terrifying and powerful, especially when his gaze landed on Aurora, his cheeks reddened. Her armor and her attire were extremely provocative, and he couldn't help but steal many glances at her. Her wings on her back were also... Necrogod gulped. Her wings were just like those that appeared in his favorite anime. He was completely spellbound, though he did take note of the way Aurora acted towards Damon. Why did a woman like that have to like this asshole? It was a fucking crime! With a heavy heart, he unleashed his frustration on all the players he could get his hands on. He was Necrogod, and he was not going to lag behind the damned Blood God. He might not be all that powerful now, but as soon as he completed his quest, his power would explode, and then everyone would know who he was and what he was capable of. Stealing one more glance at Aurora, he resolutely got back to work again, slaughtering left and right. The five seemed to be locked in an unspoken competition to see who could rack up the highest kill count, and so far Damon was leading by a landslide, despite not even being in C rank yet. His stats were skyrocketing and his skills were leveling up at an insane pace. During the whole time, Damon was also continuously on the lookout for anyone as powerful as the red-robed guy or the black-robed guy. He had a feeling that experts like that were rare even within the super guilds, and his assumption was spot on. Even though he had to face many C-rank NPCs and talented players, they did not come close to the skill exhibited by those two guys. Still, Damon didn't let his guard down. If those two robed bastards were here, then their faction wouldn't send them alone. There had to be more, others in hiding, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Damon's instincts prickled, honed sharp from both in-game experience and a paranoia that never fully left him. As the battlefield descended further into chaos, Michael finally made his move. Damon observed him exchange glances with a few people. mostly NPCs, but also some players. Immediately, these few people took something out of their storage space and drank it. A potion? Damon did not have to wait long to wonder what exactly the potion did. As soon as the bunch of people drained the potions, their auras immediately shot up. Damon could feel their power shooting up, even their levels were visibly shooting up. And it was not just a small bump. Right in front of his eyes, these few players gained a whopping 50 levels, and they were not done yet. Their auras continued increasing and increasing until they were all well into the C rank. It did not stop there. They went from stepping into the C rank to mid-C rank and only stopped when they finally reached the power level of peak C rank monsters. Instant evolution and forced rank up? Damon frowned. That cannot be good long-term. There was no way the players and NPCs couldn't feel the effects of such a drastic power-up, but they still seemed to be fine doing that. They probably trashed their entire future for a temporary power-up. Only true loyalty can make people do these things. True loyalty that had been grossly misused. I would never ask something like this of Elora or Kalethorn. This only shows the true nature of the so-called super guilds. I absolutely despise people like this. So, you got a few more C-rank powerhouses? He raised a brow, glancing at the golden-masked guy who stood indifferently, unmoving from his position. Damon's eyes widened as the next instant another batch of players and NPCs took out more of these potions and drained them, their powers as well, starting to shoot up, and it was not just a small bump. F-rank beings were the baseline of existence, common mortals with no connection to mana or the deeper energies that the world was made of. An average office worker, a laborer, a civilian, even a soldier or a trained martial artist, all of them belonged to the F-rank. At best, a peak F-rank could display extraordinary physical prowess through sheer discipline and training, but they remained bound by human limitations. They could bleed, tire, age, and die like anyone else. They had no access to the hidden layers of the world. But once someone crossed the threshold into E rank, they became awakened. This was the first true step into the supernatural. Their mana pathways unlocked and their bodies began to resonate with the latent world energies around them. Mana, elemental forces, spiritual chi, blood essence, or even divine or abyssal power, or any of the numerous world energies. A D rank was a step higher. Only those beings who were able to condense their preferred world energy into a core can call themselves a D rank, and this condensed energy also gave them a huge boost of power. An awakened individual could sense and manipulate these forces, albeit crudely at first. They could enhance their bodies, release energy attacks, form barriers, or even interact with beasts and spirits. Though they still relied heavily on tools, potions, or training aids, they had stepped onto the path of power. E-rank beings were no longer just people, they were threats, capable of killing dozens of F-ranks with minimal effort. D-rank, however, marked the transformation from energy user to energy wielder. It was not enough to merely sense or absorb energy. To become a true D-rank, one had to condense the energy they resonated with into a tangible core, a crystallized manifestation of their affinity. This core served as the internal wellspring of their power, allowing for explosive growth in strength, speed, durability, and perception. A D-rank fire mage might ignite the air with a glance. A D-rank blood warrior could regenerate from fatal wounds. The formation of a core also stabilized their energy, allowing them to use advanced techniques, chain abilities, and begin forming their own signature combat styles. At D rank, one was no longer just awakened, they were transcendent. And once their core began fusing with their body, they would step into C rank, and that was when the world would truly begin to fear them. At this stage, a being could create a domain, an extension of their will, an environmental manipulation of space itself. In this domain, their laws ruled. Time could bend, gravity could shift, and even reality could fracture if their concept was powerful enough. A peak C rank was no longer someone a kingdom could afford to ignore. They were walking disasters, each one capable of altering the outcome of wars. In the world of Earth Online, peak C rank was considered to be the highest power one could achieve. Above that, only those who possessed monstrous luck and talent could step into the world of B rank, where they formed a true core and merged with their body and soul completely. The B ranks in the entire game world could be counted in single digits. Every faction had at most one B rank, if at all, and that made them extraordinarily powerful. In fact, in the entire Light Continent, there were only 3 B ranks, 2 B ranks among the human kingdoms, and 1 B rank in the Elven kingdom. In the Dark Continent, there were actually 5 B ranks, but the 3 problem was that 2 of them were in seclusion and refused to get involved in anything. Otherwise, the Dark factions would have swallowed up the Light factions a long time ago. But these B ranks never made any move personally. If they made a move, that means the result was going to be apocalyptic. In the meantime, it was the peak C rank experts who decided the fate of the continent. And right now, the battlefield was being filled with such peak C rank beings. Damon had no doubt that these C ranks were nowhere close to the real deal, but still the power brought to the fight by so many of them couldn't really be ignored. It was a significant force multiplier. Even if they weren't true peak C ranks, more like temporary imitations brought about by artificial boosts, their collective pressure was terrifying. Numbers mattered. And when dozens of pseudo-C ranks, each with their own affinity and condensed cores, surged across the battlefield like a tidal wave, even Damon had to admit this wasn't something he could just laugh off. It was clear that whatever potion they had consumed wasn't just some crude level-boosting concoction. It had temporarily refined their control over world energy, stabilized their cores, and forcibly propelled them into a higher state of combat readiness. It was like someone had hijacked the natural progression system and brute-forced evolution into them through sheer alchemical insanity. More importantly, normal guild or players would never be able to afford something like this. This was something even the super guilds should have difficulty to obtain, stomach, and digest. The things that had transpired so far was different when compared to this last move. This kind of power is something one uses to conquer a kingdom or a territory, not a small-scale battler like this over a city. That too, not when the other side had nothing to gain from his loss. So why were they doing this now? Damon's gaze turned serious. It did not matter. This was something that had to be settled one way or the other. He prepared to test out one of these forced C ranks when suddenly the golden masked guy made a move. To his surprise, he along with a group of these newly minted forced C ranks walked right over to Aurora. "What are you doing here, and what did you do to yourself?" The golden masked guy sounded furious as he looked at Aurora from top to bottom with anger in his eyes.
Aurora only scoffed. She didn't even dignify the guy with a reply. Instead, she lifted one hand with lazy grace, like a queen swatting away a fly, and the air around her trembled. A second later, the ground beneath Michael's group cracked with a thunderous boom. Spikes of dark energy erupted upward, razor-edged tendrils of corrupted divine energy. The attack was clearly something she'd just whipped up on a whim, but it was still powerful enough to maim a few of them. Not every C rank was able to dodge it, and even Michael only barely stepped aside. Michael's eyes turned cold, and his voice became stern. "You have become crazy. You have completely lost your damn mind." Aurora did not care. She let loose another attack. "Have you lost it? Have you forgotten that you are to be betrothed to my brother? How dare you act like this? You are going against your own family." Aurora still pretended not to hear him. She simply continued attacking, her latest move draining more than 10% of one of the C rank's health. I did not believe when the others told me about you, but you have really lost your damn mind, woman. Wake up. You are fighting for a dog who will be put down today, a blood-sucking, rabid mongrel. Are you naive enough not to even see that, or are you under some kind of spell? Michael then turned to his men. You have become crazy. Make sure nothing happens to her. Just capture her alive. Aurora finally spoke up, a tad bit of anger apparent on her stunningly beautiful face. Shut your filthy mouth. You cannot talk about my husband like that. You don't even deserve to stand in front of him. Who is the dog here? You are the one who wags your tail and bows and worships someone else. My husband doesn't worship anyone. Michael's aura immediately changed. If he was irritated before, he was truly angry now. You crazy bitch! You dare talk about our God like that? His voice trembled with rage, and the divine aura around him ignited in a burst of golden radiance, causing the air to shimmer and tremble under the pressure. You've fallen so far, Aurora. Do you have any idea what you've done? Do you even understand who you've sided with? You are even calling him your husband. Did you already spread your legs for him? His golden eyes blazed behind the mask as he stepped forward, holy energy crackling around his hands like divine lightning. But Aurora didn't flinch. If anything, her lips curled into a wicked smile, the kind that held both mockery and pity. I know exactly who I've sided with, and you should thank whatever deluded god you kneel to that he hasn't decided to wipe you from the face of this world yet. Black mist curled around her feet, and the air chilled as her wings lifted again, feathers quivering with latent force. And spreading my legs, She simply blushed and did not say anything. However, this was more than enough to give all sorts of misleading answers. Michael's jaw clenched so hard it cracked audibly. You'll regret this betrayal. Aurora's grin widened. I will not regret anything. Now shoo, go away, and don't ruin my reunion day. Just end this stupid war already. I have many things to do with my husband. You fucking slut! Michael was livid. I knew you did not deserve my brother from day one. A cheap slut like you, born to commoner lapdogs, will only act like a bitch. Go and lick his dick for all I care. Aurora's face flushed. Stop saying weird things. She again looked down like a shy little girl and played with her fingers nervously, poking her right index finger at the left finger. I was talking about having a long walk on the beach with my love, and then gazing into each other's eyes. If he wants, then I am willing to do, whatever you said, but first, I think Michael's face twitched violently, a vein throbbing near his temple. He clenched his fist so tightly that the gauntlets creaked under the pressure. He didn't even try to respond this time. There was no reasoning with her anymore. She wasn't just defying their family. She was mocking everything Michael believed in, everything their order stood for. More importantly, she has gone against their God, and that alone made her unworthy of any kind of redemption. Enough, he growled, his divine aura exploding outward like a halo of gold fire. Capture her, now! She is clearly under some sort of mind control. Capture her, and we will slyly teach you who you are and who you should be. But just as his men surged forward, another wave of oppressive power blanketed the battlefield. Damon activated Bloodstorm, willing for the technique to complement Aurora's domain. Dude, when a woman tells you no, it means no. Come on now. Don't become the stereotypical villain. Aren't you guys supposed to be the good guys anyway? Michael's hand trembled from rage. He spat the word like venom. You cursed parasite! You dare speak here? You who led her astray with your foul blood and filthy lies? Your time is over. Today you will be taken care of, so get lost and don't interfere in our business. This has nothing to do with you. Damon gave a dramatic gasp and clutched his chest. Ouch! Harsh! But, unfortunately, this has everything to do with me. She is mine, you know. Did you not hear her? Apparently, we're already husband and wife. I shrugged. You see, things are completely out of my control. If you want to take her from me, come try. Around them, the bloodstorm thickened. Crimson arcs danced along Damon's arms. 6 peak forced sea ranks dashed towards Damon. All of them were paladin knights, the strongest class against vampires. The 6 peak C-rank paladins charged forward like a golden tidal wave, their bodies wreathed in divine light. Each step they took burned the ground beneath them, sacred runes glowing at their feet, holy spears materialized in their hands. Their mere presence was designed to suppress Damon's kind, suppress him. Too bad Damon wasn't just any vampire. The moment they crossed the edge of the bloodstorm, their movement slowed, their auras dimmed. Did no one tell you? Damon's smile sharpened, eyes glowing with bloodlust. Paladins taste best when they're smug and filled with divine energy. He vanished with a flicker, reappearing right behind one of them. His hand plunged into the man's back like a knife through paper, piercing divine armor and shattering bone. A second later, Damon yanked his heart free in a spray of blood. The man screamed, crumpling like a puppet with cut strings. Another paladin swung down on Damon, but his blade met only afterimages. Damon blinked again, this time appearing above them, mid-air, arms wide like a bloody messiah. Blood rain. Dozens of crimson needles materialized above. A second later, they rained down with terrifying speed. The holy knights activated barriers, but the venomous needles were vicious. 2 more went down, twitching and shrieking as their cores collapsed. Absorbing all of the blood essence greedily, Damon landed smoothly beside Aurora, blood still dripping from his fingers, his grin devilishly charming. "It looks like not all of these guys are worth your resources," Damon shrugged at Michael. Aurora laughed. "They are not weak, my love. They have received special training since their birth. I am sure only the best of the best have been selected for this particular task. But it doesn't matter. You are better than all of them combined, hubby." Seeing the look of absolute adoration on her face, Michael's face turned ugly. Anger visibly blazed in his eyes. Damon could only chuckle as he went for the next one, and this one wasn't all that easy. The paladin had a better grip on his evolved state as he immediately unleashed a powerful divine domain around him, countering the blood domain and the dark energy domain dominating at the moment. 4 others joined with him as they together overthrew all of the dark energy in the area for the 3rd time. Even Aurora was pushed back so much that she just had to get out of there. She simply couldn't stand all that combined divine and holy energy slammed on her face. A combined domain erected by 4 C-ranks, even if they were forced C-ranks, was a signification power domain that even a rising fallen angel couldn't handle. Damon, on the other hand, grinned and pressed further. It was almost as if such a powerful move had no effect on him. The 4 paladins were shocked to the core seeing his reaction. Even Michael clenched his fists, revealing the emotions hidden by his golden mask. Even though everything was against him, Damon still managed to land a few heavy punches on the paladins, getting directly down and dirty with them in a street fight style. Things would have been simpler if he had used his own divine skills to pummel them, but then he would be revealing his big secret, which he tried to hold back at the moment. Damon was unable to give his 100%, but he was still able to fight equally with the 4 paladins and hold his own. From behind Aurora, Aaron and Bloodrain attacked the group of players, slowly pushing the advantage to their side. The problem was, there were so many of them. While this was going down, other groups started targeting them individually so that they were unable to assist Damon further. Only a pig like you can hide behind women more powerful than you and still act as if you are the hero of the story, Michael sneered, his voice echoing across the battlefield. He charged towards Damon as he too, along with the rest of the paladins, rained down one attack after another at the lone vampire caught in the circle of holy and divine warriors. "Dude, tell me about it. I cannot control any of my women. They do whatever they want." Damon bitterly smiled, acting as if he was in truly a pitiful condition, but he didn't flinch. He ducked under a holy spear thrust, elbowed a paladin in the throat and sent him crashing backward with a reverse kick, then straightened and wiped the blood off his cheek with the back of his hand. His eyes shimmered with a dangerous glint. At that moment, a massive geyser of blood erupted behind him. Blades of crystallized blood spiraled through the sky, cutting down half a dozen attackers. But it did not matter. Michael and the other forced C-ranks were relentless. Damon did not back down either and continued pushing more and more. He unleashed his poison domain, his barrage of blood and hellfire skills, shadow skills and lightning skills. Every single attack he sent was power-packed using all of the mana he could squeeze from his primordial mana core. His mana reserves were emptying and refilling in record time. He was going all out in all directions. However, even with all of that, he could only at most manage a somewhat stalemate. The forced C-rank's power-up was nothing to laugh at. He could only at most keep this up for a couple more seconds. Damon's mind raced as he thought about his next move when suddenly Bloodrain's voice whispered in his ears, "My liege, why are you still in D rank?" Damon gritted his teeth. He really did not have the time to be chit-chatting with her, but he assumed that the woman had a reason for asking him this now of all the times. "I tried evolving. I couldn't. My body can't handle it." Bloodrain giggled. "My liege, I am always there with you. I know what you are talking about. I know that you have already tried evolving once and failed, but you misunderstand. If you try it again right now, you will not fail. I can guarantee it." "What?" Damon was confused. He was all about improvising to somehow come out on top in this battle, or at least hold on until Hinata arrives with the additional backup. But he was not about to fuck up his entire future for this one battle. For that, he would rather lose the Blood Hall and pursue the other million things he had on his plate. Bloodrain understood his concerns and explained, "Evolution is a way of advancing in your race, and a part of that involves making your body better. So when you evolve, you should only be more in tune with your bloodline and your mana core, not the other way around. It won't be an obstacle to you or drag you down. The fact that you are not able to evolve your vampiric race had more to do with your blood manipulation skills." Damon raised a brow, suddenly understanding many things. "Lately, you have been relying on your other elements more, my king. While your poison and your divine skills are impressive, your origin power is always blood. Only if you become more and more reliant on blood and polish your blood manipulation skills will you be able to evolve to the next rank. But I can sense that now you are ready, my king. If you evolve now, my lord, you should be able to break through any hurdles." Damon nodded. He understood what Bloodrain meant. Before, he was sorely lacking in his basic vampire skills. But now, things were different. After visiting the Crimson Mountains, he had stocked up on all kinds of vampire skills. He had also not been slacking off in using many of them on repeat to improve his blood manipulation skills. He was doing this for something else. There was a yearly tournament in the Crimson Mountains, which he wanted to participate in. He had been training for this, but it looked like it was going to help him with the next race evolution. "My liege, it will be a little risky, since we are in the middle of the battleground, but trust me, I am more than enough to guard you even if all of these insects come at you at the same time. I can give you 1 whole minute. Unfortunately, in my current condition, I can only do that much. It will be up to you to finish the evolution within that time." "Controlling the speed of my evolution?" Damon frowned. He absolutely had no confidence in achieving something like that, but he wanted to give it a try. Of course, there needed to be a backup. "Blood Rain, can you teleport me somewhere else in case I'm unable to finish the transformation? My evolution shouldn't be interrupted no matter what." Blood Rain shook her head. "If I become stronger, something like that should be child's play, but right now I cannot guarantee it. Please forgive me, my lord. I continue to be useless to you." Damon smiled and shook his head. "It's the opposite. You have helped me a lot already. Don't worry about it. Leave this to me." Even though Blood Rain did not have any such ability, it didn't mean that teleportation was impossible for Damon during his evolution. His mind wheels turned fast as he thought of a simple solution. If Blood Rain couldn't do it, then he simply had to do it for himself. Essentially, during evolution, he would be in a lot of intense pain, especially with his bloodline taking part in the whole shebang. He wouldn't be able to activate any skill, let alone maintain his concentration to control something like the speed of the evolution. But right now, it looked like he needed to do both. As long as he did that, his problem would be solved. Damon grinned. It was an unnecessary risk, but he had a feeling that he could handle it, and he wanted to push himself a little more today. The feeling of his battle with the 2 mysterious robed figures was still fresh in his mind. With men like that roaming about in our world, what he was right now was simply not enough. He needed more. He needed to be more. There was also his crazy Aurora and Aaron, 2 more backups in case he needed them. He sent a message out to the group just in case and dove in head first. "All right, let's do it." Blood Rain smiled reverently as Damon made his decision. Her red eyes shimmered like rubies lit by moonlight. "As you command, my king!" With a flick of her wrist, she carved an intricate blood rune into the air. The next second, a barrier that pulsed with ominous power and enclosed them both in a crimson dome. Outside, the battle still raged, but within this blood-drenched space, time itself seemed to slow down. The ground beneath Damon glowed faintly, the sigils of ancient vampire royalty resurfacing, runes that even the secluded B-rank vampires had never seen in their entire lives. Damon took one last breath. No turning back. He then took out 2 high-grade evolution stones and started with it. Ding! You have initiated the evolution process. The searing pain began instantly as the mystical world energy within the evolution stone began its work. The stones dissolved into streams of light, drilling deep into his veins. The energy spread everywhere, igniting every inch of Damon's body like wildfire. His muscles locked. His bones creaked like they were being melted and reforged at the same time. The world around him blurred. Blood vessels glowed like molten wires and then ruptured, only to re-knit stronger, deeper, darker. Ding! Bloodline evolution in progress. 2%, 5%, 9%. But the mystical evolution energy was nowhere near enough to fuel the transformation of all him. A few more evolution stones appeared on Damon's hand. 10 this time. Without any hesitation, he crushed all of them and sent in more energy. The pain instantly became that much more intense. Damon gritted his teeth as blood seeped out of his mouth, dribbling down his chin in thick crimson trails. His body trembled uncontrollably. Bones fractured and healed, only to break again. Every cell in his being felt like it was being unmade and rewoven by a force far beyond him. But even in the middle of this crucible of agony, his mind clawed toward clarity. He tried to focus despite all of the pain. He paid attention to the bursts of energy. This was the exact step when he had failed last time around, and if Blood Rain says there was a way for him to understand the whole thing deeper and push himself even to control it, then he wanted to do it. He focused as much as he could as the energy ravaged across his body. Soon, the wave of energy met something like a wall. Damon could not pinpoint where exactly this wall was in his body, but he could feel it somewhat. The wave of energy slammed against this wall repeatedly. It had the ability to break it. He could somehow tell that, but it felt as if it needed some help. Damon grunted, then clenched his fists, forcing himself to remain grounded in that flickering space between agony and awareness. His blood felt like fire, his bones like cracked glass ready to shatter at the lightest push. But he latched onto that sensation. The wall. The next time the wave of energy slammed against this wall, using the very little control he had and all of his willpower, he too slammed against the thing, or at least imagined doing it. It did not work, but he was not done yet. Some part of him, some force deep within his body, rose up within him, and he immediately sensed it. Damon's body trembled in shock. This was none other than his soul energy. He could feel it. He had tried so hard before to grab onto it, and this time he was able to get a hold of it a lot faster. But he was not confident enough to think that this was going to last. He was yet to train in this aspect, and this was only a temporary, fickle feeling. He held onto it for his dear life and once again slammed into the wall, this time using the soul energy to do it. The wall shuddered. It no longer showed any resistance and finally shattered. Immediately, an immense amount of energy gushed into his body. However, it was not enough. Damon took a few more evolution stones, 20 this time, and crushed them. It was still not enough. He took another 20 and then another. Finally, only when he had used 90 of these evolution stones, his body felt somewhat satiated, and the real process started. Damon buckled over in pain, and Blood Rain moved closer to him within the blood dome. She gently kneeled and then hugged his body, enveloping herself around him, cradling him. She knew the kind of torture he was going through, and her heart ached for him. "Your path is one of loneliness and pain, my liege, but I will be there for all of it. I will be there with you for all eternity. In this new birth of mine, you are my Lord, and I will endure every hardship with you. Take me and use me to sail to the other side. Your pain is my pain, my king." He couldn't respond. His jaw was locked, eyes wide, pupils shaking. The pain no longer came in waves. It was a constant storm. Every inch of him was changing. His bloodline was running wild within his body, and there was chaos everywhere. He was hanging between utter annihilation and supreme power. He felt as if his body could explode any second now. There was no more of him left to think about anything, let alone speed up the process, or even attempt to teleport away in case of danger. He had severely overestimated his abilities. There was only madness and pain everywhere. But Blood Rain's warmth seeped through all of that. Her presence offered an anchor in the middle of his chaos. Her embrace did not lessen the torment, but it gave him a sense of being. Damon clutched onto this small feeling and his small strand of soul energy and tried to remain afloat somehow and not drown in the big, ugly mess that was his evolution. With everything clashing with each other and all parts of him inadequate and overpowered at the same time, it was simply a lost cause, but Damon held on somehow.
Meanwhile, the battlefield outside finally realized that something was off. Many paladins rushed towards the blood sphere that had suddenly popped up in the middle of the battlefield. At first, they thought it was some sort of an attack forming and tried to break it up, but all of their efforts were useless. In fact, their attacks were being absorbed by the blood sphere. This shocked all the players and NPCs, and even more people tried to attack it, afraid that it was going to blow up and kill them all at once. The first 60 seconds passed by in a jiffy. By now, an entire segment of the army was attacking the blood sphere, but it was completely useless. The other side only became confused. Seeing that Aurora and Aaron didn't even pay attention to it, they even considered giving up and focusing on other things. However, Michael did not allow it, and ordered them to continue. Aurora bit her lips in frustration. Soon, the 1-minute mark arrived, and everything changed at the 1-minute mark. The attacks were no longer being absorbed. Many of the attacks started detonating on the blood sphere, splattering blood everywhere. It was thick, venous blood that killed anyone who stepped near it without preparation, but still the sphere was becoming weaker and weaker. Everyone could sense it. It was right at this moment that Aurora and Aaron finally made their move and appeared in front of the sphere. Both of them immediately got to work, directly jumping from full offense to full defense. Aurora thudded her staff on the ground, and a dome of corrupted divine energy formed around the blood sphere, drinking in all the attacks. Further encasing hers, another hazy miasmic shield appeared, and the miasma seeped everywhere, instantly messing with the minds of the players nearby. Neither said a word, but their synchronization was flawless, as if honed from dozens of battles fought side by side. Michael scoffed at this sight. There he goes, once again hiding behind his women. He did not need more proof than this to know that Damon was within that mess. At first, he thought that the vermin had simply hidden himself in the battleground, preparing for some sort of attack, but now he could see that he was injured, or perhaps worse. He was definitely doing something within that big cluster of barriers. Let me see how you are finishing what you started with me here. A golden trident appeared in his hand as he charged towards the barrier with righteous fury blazing in his eyes. The air around him shimmered with holy energy, golden arcs dancing along the length of his trident like lightning coiled for vengeance. Each of his strides cracked the earth, and the paladins nearby instinctively parted to clear his path. "Out of my way," Michael growled. "Someone like him shouldn't exist in this world." However, before his attack could reach, Aurora appeared in front of him, meeting him with an equally powerful attack. Divine energy and corrupted divine energy clashed, but Aurora's attack was clearly superior. Michael was swiftly pushed back. "Stay out of my way, crazy bitch," he growled, and the next second something lit up on his forehead. A sigil appeared, and along with it, suddenly, Michael's power increased tenfold. He was now easily able to match Aurora's strength. "You cannot win against me. I have already received my blessings. Someone like you wouldn't understand the meaning of that. What? Did you say that I was wagging my tail like a dog to a being I do not know? You are the one who does not know anything. Someone like you wouldn't even be able to understand his power. You don't know the difference between heaven and earth, you pathetic little fool. I am wielding my God's power. Stand in my way now and see what happens to you." Michael's voice reverberated through the battlefield, instantly increasing everyone's morale. The army started fighting even more vigorously, pushing back the few vampires scattered here and there. Numbers started falling rapidly. Kate, Mark, Elora, Kalethorn, and Necrogod all appeared next to the big sphere. Aurora was dealing with Michael, but there were a lot more attackers. The rest of the group gave it its all to push back all the attacks. Mark jumped to the forefront along with Aaron and Aurora as his Titan blood pulsed with power.
He was clearly drained and tired from fighting all this time, but this was Damon, so he squeezed out everything he had and fought hard. He alternated between blocking and pummeling his opponents as he sent one after another flying halfway across the battlefield. But the forced sea ranks were like cockroaches. They were not easily slain. The huge amount of healers on their side also did not help. The whole group was struggling to keep itself alive. Elora had taken over healing, but she was nowhere near a competent healer. The weakness was quickly apparent. But even without a healer, every single one in the group was an elite player, and they were more than capable of handling themselves. Necrogod, Kate, and Elora assisted, while Kilthorn, Mark, Aaron, and Aurora stood at the forefront and took the majority of the hits and the brunt of the attacks. Among these, Aurora was the one who was pushed back the most, as Michael was not an ordinary opponent. Aurora skidded back across the dirt, her boots carving lines into the battlefield, as Michael's amplified aura hammered down on her like a divine storm. Her corrupted divine shield flickered for a moment, but did not break. Blood trailed from the corner of her lips, yet her eyes burned with defiance. "I don't care about your god, and I'll be damned before I let anyone lay a finger on my husband." He sneered, golden light surging even more wildly around him, crackling like a barely contained sun. "Then you'll be the first to fall," he said, voice no longer just his own. It rang with something deeper, colder, something divine. The sigil on his forehead pulsed once, and with a roar he launched himself forward again. This time the clash was catastrophic. Aurora was sent flying back, her body tossed away like a rag doll. Her health dropped to a mere 20%, but she did not care. She instantly rebounded without caring even a bit about the pain ravaging her body. "You cannot go past me." Her black feathers glowed as she spread her wings wide, each one drenched in intense corrupted light. "You cannot go past me," she repeated, her voice cold, resolute, echoing with power. A new sigil flickered to life behind her, a swirling spiral of wings and thorns. Her eyes bled black mist as she unleashed another attack. A twisted crown of dark shards floated above her head as the entire battlefield became a field of thorns the next moment. Jet-black vines surged from the cracked earth, lashing out with vicious barbs that coiled around Michael's paladins, impaling some, restraining others. Screams filled the air as dozens were instantly impaled or thrown into the sky. Michael leapt back, his trident spinning defensively as he cleaved through a wave of thorns trying to ensnare him. His golden aura was beginning to flicker under the oppressive weight of Aurora's domain. "You think just this much can stop me?" he growled, and as he charged forward again, unexpectedly, a sinister smile appeared in those golden eyes behind the golden mask. "Aurora, do you know something? There is a way that you can kill someone permanently in this game." His cold gaze stared down at her, and it was clear what he meant. Aurora's staff slammed down again, triggering a massive eruption of corrupted energy. Michael roared and raised his trident high, the sigil on his forehead blazing brighter than ever. A pillar of golden light descended from the heavens, shielding him as he prepared to launch a divine judgment. Everyone on the battlefield gaped at the pillar in shock. A powerful aura spilled from the pillar. It was power beyond what even a powerful C rank could command. "Aurora, move, now!" Mark's voice sounded. He jumped in front of her, wanting to shield her. However, it was useless. His Titan blood was powerful, but he hadn't yet awakened his bloodline fully, and he was nowhere near a fallen angel's power level. He was simply thrown away, unable to even withstand what Aurora was enduring head-on. Mark crashed into the dirt with a thunderous boom, rolling across the battlefield like a broken meteor. Still, his eyes remained locked on Aurora as he once again prepared to go and help her. Unfortunately, it was too late. Mark was already in front of her,
Aurora did not budge. She stood between him and the blood sphere with defiance in her eyes. "If you want him, then you have to go through me first. As long as I am here, nothing will ever come near him. He is mine." Her black wings flared wide as she raised her staff. An equally powerful aura seeped out of her as she blocked Michael's path. Almost equally, but not quite. A huge golden hand erupted from the divine pillar, and the hand directly clutched her, lifting her off the ground and strangling her. The crackling energy from the golden hand was overwhelming. It wasn't just divine, it was judgment incarnate, the will of a higher being poured into form. The massive radiant fingers constricted around Aurora, squeezing the life from her with no hesitation, as if punishing a blasphemer who dared challenge the heavens. Her corrupted wings thrashed violently, feathers scattering like burned paper, but her body was locked in place, suspended midair by the divine grip. Her staff fell from her hand, clattering onto the ground as her vision began to blur. Her corrupted sigil faltered. Her breathing grew faint. Her body convulsed, muscles torn apart from the pure, incompatible divinity suffocating her. Michael strode forward beneath the golden pillar's light like a messiah, triumphant and cold. "You were warned, and now you'll learn what it means to defy the heavens for a filthy bloodsucker." His hand squeezed tighter, and Aurora looked truly miserable at the moment, when suddenly a barrage of blood spheres hit him squarely on his head. More pelted the huge hand, and many blood runes started appearing around the golden pillar. Michael coldly snorted and turned around to see Alora and Kate madly swinging their attacks at him. The barrage of blood spheres and disruptive runes shattered his concentration only momentarily, but it was enough to give Aurora breathing room, which she used to free herself. Kate and Alora didn't stop. They kept hurtling more and more attacks, each one landing with jarring force against Michael's form. "Get away from her!" Kate screamed. Floating blood spheres orbited her like angry stars, each one exploding on impact. Michael was forced to raise his trident to block the onslaught, stepping back in irritation. "More bitches," he spat, with disdain. He swung his golden trident, and immediately many powerful slashes appeared and shot towards Kate and Alora. The two women tried their best to evade, but they were struck by a few which sent them flying, blood seeping out of their mouths. Necro God and Kalethorn were pushed back by a few more forced sea ranks, and they were completely locked, unable to step in and help. Only Aurora again mustered whatever was left in her, corrupted energy writhing around her, and sped towards the blood sphere to once again stand in front of it and protect it. Several hands of corrupted energy shot from her, all headed straight for Michael. However, the guy simply did not care. His trident rose again, golden arcs swirling around it like divine serpents, coalescing into a radiant spear of judgment aimed directly at her heart. "You just don't learn," he muttered coldly. "Stay down, bitch, and I will let you live." But Aurora didn't stop. She knew she couldn't win. She wasn't here to win. She was here to stall. At the last second, she twisted her body, absorbing the brunt of the divine spear with her shoulder instead of her heart. The impact tore through flesh and bone, searing divine fire eating into her corrupted mana, but she grit her teeth and shoved herself closer. Her staff, resummoned mid-charge, spun in a desperate arc, crashing against Michael's arm and knocking the trident slightly off course. Blood burst from her mouth. Her wings shriveled, feathers incinerating from proximity alone, but she kept pressing forward, face inches from Michael's, corrupted energy pouring out of her in all directions like a dam bursting. From behind, Kate and Alora desperately tried to attack the guy again and again to break him free from Aurora. Aurora might not have noticed it, but the other sure did. Right now, even parts of her flesh and body were missing. She was badly wounded and had only a sliver of health remaining. Erin's roar loudly echoed across the battlefield. Her huge draconic serpent form thrashed against the dozen forced sea ranks holding her back. Her slit-like eyes seethed in anger, her entire body fuming with thick miasma that made the several sea ranks go all out. They were only barely holding her down, but they were doing it. Michael sneered, a vicious glint appearing in his golden eyes. The next second, the golden pillar of light shone again as three gigantic hands appeared this time. One shot towards Aurora, grasping her tightly. The other two shot towards Kate and Allura. Divine rule, third verdict, soul shatter. Divine rule, third verdict, soul shatter. Michael's voice boomed on the battleground, and for a moment, everything stopped. The three divine hands slammed down with the force of divine wrath made manifest. Aurora, already on the brink, screamed silently as the hand grasped her mid-air and squeezed. Her body convulsed as she was completely trapped and unable to free herself. It looked like even her mana flow was stopped. She was fully arrested, but the hand did not stop with that. It kept squeezing her more and more. She struggled, choking and gasping, the light from her eyes slowly dimming. Her wings burned to ash, her eyes rolled back, and her entire body twitched and writhed. The other two hands reached Kate and Allura. Kate's blood spheres screamed in unison, forming a barrier that shattered on impact. She was blasted away, skidding across the dirt, barely alive. The hand then grasped her and lifted her up in the air, squeezing her more and more. Allura, too, was flung like a doll, her robes torn, her face pale as death. The third hand clutched her and began the torture. Michael silently stood watching the torture with clear amusement in his eyes. "Filth and trash! You do not deserve to live in the kingdom of my God." The man barely spared a glance at Kate and Allura and directly walked over to Aurora. "I didn't think I will be killing you today, Aurora, the commoner born with the divine bloodline, but see what you did to yourself. You could have become someone great, someone who ruled this world together with us. But now, you've thrown it all away for nothing." Michael took a deep breath and exhaled, and the hands became even more intense. He then once again calmly watched Aurora struggle and choke as he continued. "It doesn't matter anymore, but before you die, you should know something. The mongrel you are dying for wants nothing to do with you. He traded you for 2 billion gold coins. You were always just a pawn for him." He made the hand stop, giving her a temporary reprieve. "How does it feel to know that the person whom are you dying for doesn't really give a shit about you? He sold you for nothing." Aurora's entire body trembled as she looked up. Michael wanted to see the suffering in her eyes, but she merely spat at him and said nothing. "Just die already, you filthy slut." Michael's sigil once again burned brightly, and this time veins of gold spread across the hand. The aura around the hand became even more intense, and Aurora desperately tried to do everything she could to escape, but nothing worked. She was under iron grip. On the other side, Kate and Allura were also not doing any better. All three of them were just barely a second away from breaking apart and shattering completely. Golden veins started crawling all over their body as well, the divine energy wreaking havoc in the depths of their being. Their skin dried up and started peeling. Their flesh caked and became brittle, like scorched parchment clinging desperately to crumbling bone. Even their mana began to dissipate into the air, unable to circulate under the oppressive grip of divine rule. Aurora's vision faded in and out. Her mind screamed in despair. She could feel her soul fraying at the edges, feel her connection to everything she was slipping away. Michael leaned close, extending his hand to touch whatever was left of her face. "This is mercy. You won't even be remembered. Not even a name on a gravestone. Nothing. Now die." He was just about to send the final bolt of divine energy and slam into her, when suddenly a blood barrier appeared in front of him, preventing him from touching her.
Before Michael could react, a wave of blood appeared out of nowhere, completely surrounding the golden hand and Aurora. "What?" Michael recoiled, his eyes wide for the first time. But he quickly regained his composure as the sigil on his forehead once again glued brightly. The blood sphere immediately began to sizzle as it started becoming smaller and smaller. The golden hand started regaining its power. Michael sneered. "Resisting is useless. Your death is already written as a divine rule. You have been judged," he shouted and shifted his attention to the huge blood sphere, which was still intact. He gave a cold snort and pulled back the trident, lifting it up, preparing to throw it at the blood sphere. However, before his attack could connect, a loud whooshing sound caught his attention. His eyes widened as he watched the blood sphere becoming prominent once more. The divine hand, once glowing with authority and sanctified brilliance, trembled. A powerful bloodthirsty aura rippled out of the blood sphere. It became bigger and bigger until it completely engulfed the golden hand. "Impossible!" Michael gritted his teeth, unleashing more and more energy from his sigil. However, it was completely useless. In fact, everything only seemed to get worse. The more power he poured out, the more vicious the blood sphere became. It was as if he was feeding it, rather than fighting it. Michael refused to believe that his attack could be subdued this easily. He ordered his men to start attacking the blood sphere, and he pushed his sigil more and more, trying to empower the hand more. None of it was working. To make matters worse, the sigil on Michael's forehead started burning. Small cracks spread from it. If one looked closely, Michael's skin started changing and becoming more dry, minor cracks spreading everywhere. He still held on, refused to let go. Aurora needed to die today. He pushed more and more until blood started leaking from his sigil. To Michael's shock, the few drops of blood floated away from his body. His gaze trailed them as he watched them fly to the big blood sphere, unable to do anything about it. Then he realized that there was something else wrong. The big blood sphere now had many cracks on it. Michael froze for a moment, but he immediately acted after that. He used whatever he had left in his body to wrap around his trident and sent it straight to the blood sphere. He had no idea what the mongrel was doing inside the blood sphere, but as long as he managed to destroy the whole damn thing, nothing would matter. He could always deal with the bitches later. His muscles strained as he released the attack with full force. The trident blazed with golden fury as it tore through the air, ripping apart the wind and space in its path. It screamed with the divine will of a peak C-rank being. The battlefield trembled, scorched gold ripping apart the clouds above as the weapon closed the distance to the blood sphere. However, the next instant it abruptly stopped. A hand, pale and veined with red light, emerged from the heart of the sphere and simply grasped the divine trident mid-flight. No aura burst, no flashy explosion, just a quiet, absolute dominance that sucked everything from the attack. Michael stumbled a step backward, eyes going wide. What? Something told him he was already too late. He watched blankly as the cracks on the blood sphere deepened and each fracture shimmered with a deep crimson light. It was cracking on its own, even though the trident did not even touch it. And whatever attack he used was pretty much useless. Blood tendrils rose from the hatching blood sphere and completely absorbed the entire momentum and power of the trident. The weapon simply clattered on the ground like a useless piece of metal. The blood sphere then completely burst open, sending shards of venomous blood blades in all directions. Each one howled with power as they shot forward with insane speed. Every player or NPC they hit instantly recoiled with agonized screams, clutching at wounds that were rapidly rotting. The blood blade drilled into their armor, their body, and attacked their very core, instantly killing many. And from within the shattered sphere, Damon stepped out. Michael's eyes widened in shock. He could sense it clearly. Damon was no longer the same person. A powerful C-rank aura writhed around him, but it was unlike anything else he had ever seen. How could a forced C-rank evolution produce this sort of effect? Unless... Michael gulped. Impossible! With an unknown fear rising in his heart, his gaze fell on the vampire standing in front of him. Damon looked nothing like before. His skin shimmered with a pale iridescence tinged with blood veins pulsing gently beneath the surface. His eyes were abyssal red, glowing with an eerie calm. His hair was long, pitch black in color, and it whipped about in the wind. There was no piece of clothing on his body, so one could see how well chiseled and inhuman his physique had become. Damon's frame was sculpted like that of a battle-forged deity. But even more terrifying than his appearance was the feeling he exuded, an overwhelming dominance that made it clear that he was above everyone else here. Michael's legs involuntarily trembled. He tried to raise his hand to summon another attack, but it wouldn't move. His divine connection was flickering and failing. The sigil on his forehead, once bright and commanding, now dimmed like a candle snuffed out by a storm. Damon didn't speak. He simply walked forward, his gaze cold and predatory. A blood tendril came out of him and took away the trident on the ground. It did not look like Damon had exerted any effort to do something like that. The tendril executed his will on its own. This level of shocking control left everyone baffled. Damon then took another step forward, and all the blood essence on the battlefield rushed towards him in a frenzy. His stat points that had stagnated before once again started increasing without any limit in sight. In the blink of an eye, his power was now equivalent to someone who had reached the peak of the early C rank. "You forcefully evolved?" Michael shouted. "You screwed up. You should not have done that. Now all of your future potential is completely gone. You will never become as strong as me or as powerful as me. You will just be a dog in my God's kingdom." Unfortunately, the man's threats that were very real before and commanding now sounded purely like desperate ramblings of a madman. Without wasting time, Michael took out a potion and drank it. A bright golden shield appeared around him. Even as the shield was still covering him, he started retreating at top speed. Not just that, he also gave the command to several others who hesitantly took out potions and drank them. Another wave of forced C ranks emerged on the battlefield, each one emitting a powerful aura. However, this aura was nothing when compared to the one unleashed by the single person. Damon merely laughed. He did not bother to go after Michael first. Instead, he paused as he took a read of the battleground. At the same time, more blood tendrils as they shot towards Aurora, Kate, and Alora. A few more tendrils shot forward, reaching Mark, Aaron, Necrogod, Kalethorn, and Milana. The tendrils wrapped around them without hindering their movements. Almost immediately, everyone's eyes widened in shock as they felt the immense burst of healing and nourishing energy contained in the blood. Elora had tried to do something before, but it was nothing when compared to the skill level exhibited by Damon. His skill was equivalent to Aurora's top healing skill while she was still playing on the side of light. All the injuries, fatigue, and exhaustion everyone had accumulated until now on the battlefield were slowly disappearing. The effect was not just for the instant. Wisps of blood lingered, continued to heal and nourish them. Kate's burned skin began to regenerate almost instantly. The cracked bones in Alora's limbs snapped back into place with audible clicks, and divine corrosion was rapidly expelled from Aurora's core as her wings slowly began to regrow, not feather by feather, but as whole radiant appendages made of flowing blood and darkness. The trio, barely clinging to life just moments ago, gasped in shock as the pain was replaced by a flood of rejuvenation. Even their mana cores began to stabilize, cleansed and restored as if a reset button had been pressed. However, unlike others, the three were not able to recover and bounce back that quickly. While their conditions seemed to have stabilized for now, their bodies could only weakly plummet to the ground. Another set of blood tendrils shot from Damon's body, shaped like hands, and quickly caught them. Unlike the golden hand, the blood-red hand gently cradled them and held them tight, not letting even a single stray attack touch them. Mark finally let out a sigh of relief. Aaron, who was on the other side, finally shook off all the incompetent C-ranks holding her back and let out a roar that shook the whole battlefield. Kalethorn grinned with reverence in his eyes as his blade slaughtered faster and cleaner. Damon's presence was like a mountain, so immovable and inevitable that every single vampire on the battleground panted in fervor. Even the blood generals couldn't help but feel their blood boil at the sight of him. His aura rippled through the battlefield like a sovereign's decree, leaving no doubt about who reigned supreme. Damon hadn't just come back, he had returned as something else entirely. A monarch cloaked in blood who needed no crown to be recognized. "What are you all looking at? Kill him! Shoot him down! Now!" Michael screamed, now once again back in the safety of his army. The command rang out like a thunderclap, but it failed to shake the suffocating dread that gripped every soul on the field. Around Michael, there were nearly 50 forced C-ranks, all clearly with the sole purpose of protecting him. He adjusted his golden mask and sneered as he felt satisfied with this line of defense. "You burnt your potential for nothing. You are going to die today, and your blood hall is going to collapse. You will always be a fucking loser. Look at my power and meal. You will never be able to touch my level. You have no idea what I am capable of. You are just a filth with a commoner's blood. Do you even know the history of my bloodline?" Damon laughed and looked straight at him through all of the mess and chaos. All sorts of attacks started flying at him, but now he did not even bother to move to block any of them. He simply used his blood tendrils to block one attack after another, as if they meant nothing. Michael trembled. He couldn't meet Damon's eyes and looked away. That single gaze shattered whatever illusion he had wrapped around himself. For the first time, Michael felt it. Not fear, but insignificance. His words, his power, his mask, his entourage, they all suddenly felt meaningless. As though the universe itself had tilted, placing Damon at its apex and reducing everything else to mere background noise. He gritted his teeth and hurriedly took out a magic scroll when all of a sudden an ominous feeling gripped his heart. The next moment, Damon appeared beside him, silently. Michael shuddered. It was as if the devil was standing right next to him. "Before today, I did not give two shits about you. I did not care if you lived or died as long as you stayed out of my way. But today, you did something you should not have done. You touched what was mine, and now your entire family is going to pay for it. A secretly powerful, hidden family with unfathomable powers? In 30 days, I will make you and your entire family disappear like you had never even existed in the first place." Michael's heart raced. He opened his mouth, but he felt so much pressure from Damon being so close that he couldn't bring himself to say anything or do anything. "You think I'm bluffing?" Damon murmured again, his tone casual, as if he were discussing the weather. "Then pray Pray to whatever gods your ancestors once worshipped and to whichever god gave you his blessing, because I will rip your name from history, carve your bloodline out of the books, and make sure no one remembers your legacy except as an example of what happens when filth dares to claw at what's mine." Michael's trembling fingers finally managed to activate the teleportation scroll. "Huga! Huga!" He muttered someone's name in desperation, but there was no time for anything. Blood silently leaked inside the golden shield, formed a hand around Michael's neck. Then, just like how he had squeezed Aurora, Kate, and Alora, the blood hand also tightened around Michael's throat. Dozens of forced C-ranks rushed towards Damon and unleashed a barrage of attacks on him, but a storm of blood enveloped him and Michael, a storm that did not allow any of the attacks through. A blood domain. It was clear that they needed some time to break the domain. The numerous C-ranks threw everything they had at the domain. They finally managed to crack the domain after a few good seconds, but when they did, it was already too late. Damon mockingly sneered at them before he disappeared from their sight once again. Next to him, Michael's body collapsed on the ground, limp and lifeless. His golden mask rolled on the ground, broken, revealing his horrified face and his pathetic expression. Damon had also done the courtesy of breaking all of the armor on his body, so everyone could clearly see that the man had actually peed in his pants. It was a sight that no one would forget. Even as Michael's body became motes of light and disappeared, everyone's eyes were glued to his crotch, watching the wet spot. A man, once regarded as untouchable, hidden behind layers of privilege, protected by power, legacy, and fear, was now reduced to this. For many, this moment would be seared into memory forever. Not Michael's strength, not his threats, not even his death, but the pathetic, all-too-human truth revealed at the end. The same man who had once claimed to be divine had died a coward's death, piss-soaked and broken. "It's too bad I do not know how to snuff out your soul right here and now," Damon clicked his tongue. His gaze then landed on the many forced C-ranks littered on the battleground, and a maniacal look appeared on his face. A slow, creeping grin that didn't belong to a man, but to something far more primal. Bloodlust incarnate. "Oh well," Damon muttered, "I suppose you'll do." A maniacal glint flashed in his eyes as his blood tendrils writhed behind him, growing longer, sharper, more alive. They snapped and cracked like whips soaked in rage, headed straight for massacre. Those who did not have the resistance erected to his venom instantly crumbled, choking and twitching. Even though, at C rank, the poison could not kill them right away, they pretty much became useless ragdolls, whom the tendrils then stabbed mercilessly many times and shredded into pieces in the blink of an eye. The tendrils lashed out with predacious precision, snaking under armor, sliding along mail, and finding the weak points. The forced C-ranks did not give up so easily and used their advantage in numbers to attack together in formations, making it that much more harder for Damon to counter. But Damon was not even close to slowing down. Even before he was able to deal with the forced C-ranks somewhat decently, and now after evolving, they were barely a threat to him. They were mere fake C-ranks, and he had no problems in forcing his way through their formation. He took down whomever he could and culled the numbers of the army left and right. Around the edges of the slaughter, Aaron, Calthorn, and Mark found fresh wind in their lungs. Aaron tore through forced C-ranks, claws and tail turning men into ragged heaps. Calthorn moved like a machine of precise brutality. Mark staggered to his feet, bloody and laughing like a madman, punching everyone in his path with a wild power. He had a lot on his conscience, and it showed in his actions. He was supposed to be the right-hand man Damon trusted the most and could rely on, and yet he was useless again and again, despite having a unique and powerful bloodline. Many thoughts formed in his mind about the future as he went all out and fought to his heart's content. The battle continued raging on all fronts. More and more NPCs continued pouring in from all sides, making it difficult for the vampires to hold on. Even with Damon's utter dominance on the battlefield, they weren't able to push back the other side quickly and decisively. Damon couldn't help but frown. The NPC numbers simply kept increasing, as if someone on the other side was purposefully driving everyone their way. He took a moment and searched for his blood marks. Immediately, he sensed a mark in one of the nearby cities. It was that woman again. The other two marks were not to be found, but her mark was right there. So, it's your work, huh? You are still unwilling to accept defeat. You want me to fail that badly? A plan quickly formed in Damon's mind, but the plan hinged on, "I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." Hinata's voice resounded in the communication crystal right on time. "I promised I would help you, and yet I was completely unable to arrive on time to be of any use. I just heard the update from one of the vampires. You have really suffered a lot this time." Damon chuckled. "It's fine. You're here now, and that's all that matters." Hinata hesitated on the other end. "I'm here, but not in the way that you think. I was only able to get 50 of my personal troops here. As for the others, there were complications." Even without her explaining, Damon could already guess what the complications were. "Don't worry about it. Are those 50 men the best you got? Do you think you can take out a city lord with minimal security with those men?" A city lord assassination? Hinata did not expect that. She drew in a sharp breath from the other side of the communication crystal. "If it's just them and not a full-on fortified compound, yes, my troops may not be many, but they're elite. Assassins, blood mages, blood knights, loyal only to me. There are about a dozen blood generals and many on the verge of breaking through, so yes, we should be able to handle that." The truth was that it was going to be a risky venture, especially considering they were in Light Faction. Even though Blood God mentioned only a minimal security assassination, how could something like that be possible? A city lord would always be heavily guarded. Hinata knew that Blood God was possibly fed some wrong information. It was likely that they were walking into a trap, but she did not care. Blood God had risked everything before for her sake, and now it was her turn to do the same and return the favor. In fact, even Damon was a little surprised that she agreed readily. He wanted to explain more, but time was of essence. It was best that she found out for herself. Just as she arrived at the blood hall, she quickly spoke to Varnex, who was shocked out of his wits. The old vampire never expected a main family member from the Crimson Mountains to visit their little shack and was sweating profusely the entire time he spoke with her. But to Hinata's surprise, he too was of the opinion that the cities around Nira were right now not heavily guarded. Hinata could only sigh as she obtained all the information and quickly prepared to set out. It looked like she had to see for herself how things actually were and not fall for any traps. Even if it would be extremely difficult, she wanted to somehow snatch at least one city lord position from the Light Faction cities, and then she would consider the favor returned.
"What did you say?" Hinata was so sure what they would be walking into, but when the scouts came back with an unexpected report, her face completely changed. Was Blood God telling her the truth all along? She did not think that he would be misleading them and tricking them into a trap, but she was pretty sure the vampire had genuinely wrong information. But now it looked like it was she who was in the wrong. "This is ridiculous," Hinata gasped. "How could a city be so casually guarded? Aren't they basically just asking for it?" One of her lieutenants, a tall blood knight with scarred cheeks and hollow eyes, nodded solemnly. "My lady, the scouts confirm. No enchantments on the gates, no active sentries, just a skeleton crew of guards patrolling lazily.
The city lord's mansion itself? Lightly guarded, not even a barrier dome. It's like they're not expecting anything at all. Hinata narrowed her eyes, stepping out from the thicket onto a high ridge that overlooked the outer city walls. The wind tugged at her crimson cloak as her mind raced. Could this really be happening? She then remembered Blood God's words. Half of the number of cities they managed to capture would be theirs. So that person really meant it? Her heart raced in excitement. Here she was expecting to do a favor for him, but instead it was she on the receiving end once again. She hurriedly took out another communication crystal, this time one that was directly connected to the main family's elder. This issue was far too important to simply let it go. A few minutes later, Hinata placed the communication crystal back in her spatial storage with a big smile on her face. Things were now in motion, and her heart was beating with excitement. She might have failed miserably in her last mission, but this time everything was going to be different. She did not waste any more time and ordered her men to attack. Hinata's elite force descended into the city silently. Dozens of blood mages and assassins scattered across the perimeter like wolves closing in on a limping prey. The few patrolling guards never stood a chance. In the blink of an eye, they were already at the city lord's mansion. Hinata stood tall as she watched the gates creak open without resistance. Crimson mist curled from her fingers as she activated her blood sense, sweeping through the area like a sonar. Still nothing. No hidden reinforcements, no collapsing formations, no flaring mana traps. It was exactly as reported, unguarded, unprotected, unprepared. It was a gift, no, an invitation. She couldn't help but laugh softly. "Blood God, just what the hell are you planning?" she murmured, eyes gleaming. But regardless of his grander scheme, this was now her moment. Her failure in the past would be buried here, beneath a mountain of corpses and many captured cities. All of Hinata's men were trained vampires who had taken part in many battles in their long lifetime. They knew exactly what to do and achieved it most efficiently. The mansion doors were kicked open with a loud crash, blood knights pouring in with blades drawn and spells primed. What followed was not a battle, it was a butchery. The few guards present died too quickly to scream. The city lord, a portly man, stumbled from his chambers in disbelief, only to be struck down with a precision strike to the throat. The seal on his command ring was torn off and tossed to Hinata like a trophy. She caught it midair. The entire operation had taken less than 15 minutes. A whole city taken in silence just like that. As her men fanned out to secure vital points, the treasury, teleportation nexus, and communication arrays, Hinata took a deep breath. The scent of conquest was sweet. She turned back toward the courtyard, where her blood generals were assembling the civilians and lower officers. Other members of the family would have dealt with the situation differently, but Hinata did not like unnecessary bloodshed. She personally considered it an act of weakness and cowardice when the strong targeted the weak and innocent. She also had no intention of taking any prisoners, not when the main family's underground chambers were already overflowing with them. Everyone was given exactly 5 minutes to flee the city. Naturally, anyone who moved too slowly or tried to carry more than what they could hold in their arms was cut down and drained dry. The city quickly descended into chaos. Hinata stood atop the mansion balcony watching it all unfold with impassioned eyes. Civilians scrambled through the streets clutching what few possessions they could manage, eyes wide with fear and disbelief. Her blood generals enforced her decree with ruthless precision, neither cruel nor kind, just efficient. Of course, there were a few who resisted. Small pockets of rebellion sparked here and there, some brave or foolish enough to take up arms. But once the vampires made an example of those defiant souls by tearing through them like wolves through sheep, no one else dared to follow. The rest fled, and within moments, the city was emptied of its former inhabitants. This was no longer a city of the Light faction. It belonged to the vampires now. As the last of the stragglers either vanished into the distance or collapsed where they stood, Hinata closed her eyes. She did not think that things would be so easy.
but it looked like this was her lucky day. And that too, this wasn't even a random poor city. The treasury spoke otherwise. They had gained a lot in this raid, and this was just the beginning. What would happen if they really managed to capture multiple cities all in a single breath? Just the thought made me giddy. The Crimson Mountains had been searching for a way to infiltrate the Light Faction continent for years, and they finally have a way in. This was a big deal. She took out the pulsing communication crystal again as her eyes gleamed. The others are here.
What happened next sent shockwaves through the entire player base. The eyes of the world were fixed on the unfolding chaos in Niera City, where Blood God was single-handedly turning the tide of a faction war. But new reports started trickling into the forums, chat channels, and world feeds. At first, they were dismissed as rumors or trolling attempts. But within minutes, the truth could no longer be denied. An enormous vampire army had emerged seemingly from nowhere. Silent and swift, they descended upon the surrounding region like a crimson plague. They targeted the 5 major cities around Niera. One by one, these cities fell. Players and NPCs alike were caught completely off guard. There were no announcements, no war horns, no siege warnings. Only blood. A tidal wave of it. In less than half an hour, 5 Light Faction strongholds were overrun. Entire guilds were wiped out. Main storyline NPCs were executed mid-dialogue. Merchants, quest givers, and even vault keepers were gone. What horrified players the most was how precise the invasions had been. The vampires didn't raze the cities, they simply occupied them. Teleportation circles were repurposed, quest boards were changed, new flags replaced old ones, treasuries were emptied. It was as if these cities had never belonged to the Light Faction at all. And then came the system notifications, dozens of them, flooding players' screens. Ding! World update. A hidden vampire army has claimed multiple key territories in the Light Faction. Ding! Faction alignment shift. Cities under vampire dominion are now considered dark territory. Ding! New race evolution available. Embrace the night. Accept the vampire's gift and become one of them. Limited time event. Ding! New world quest. Defend what's left. The kingdom of Senatus is on the brink, with many cities captured by the Dark Faction. Call for battle to reclaim what is rightfully the Light Faction territory. Mamma mia! Several new quests popped out, each one more juicy than the last. Mayhem exploded across the internet forums and in-game chat. Thousands of players flocked to the newly captured cities, curious, greedy, and desperate. Some hoped to take advantage of new quests and faction rewards, while others were there to see if they could get some easy Dark Faction kills. Unfortunately, anyone who stepped in with the wrong attitude was cut down mercilessly by patrolling blood generals and elite NPCs loyal to Hinata and the Crimson Mountains. And the most controversial of all was the new Embrace the Night event questline. Players had the option to permanently change their race to vampire. The rewards were obscene. Even longtime Light Faction loyalists began questioning their allegiance. Videos went viral showing top-ranked players turning into vampires, gaining blood-red eyes and unique transformation animations. The forums exploded with debates. Was the vampire race completely overpowered now? Seeing Blood God rule the battlefield, many were inclined to believe this. Awe-inspiring battle videos were spreading everywhere, and this, coupled with the sudden influx of quests and rewards, made many players switch sides. All of a sudden, vampires were everywhere in the game. Meanwhile, the Blood God's name surged to the top of every trending board, not just for what he was doing in Niera, but what his war had awakened. Speculation went wild. Was Blood God behind the vampire army's sudden coordination? Did he broker a deal with the Crimson Mountains? Was this all part of some hidden main storyline arc that no one had discovered before? This entire Blood Hall battle had suddenly become something else entirely. The whole event was supposed to be a springboard for the 4 super guilds to reveal themselves and announce their dominating presence across the world. But now everything had changed. It was Blood God who had announced his dominion over this game. No one was even talking about Northern Frontiers or Southern Vanguard or the European Coalition. There were indeed some talking about the 3 guilds, but not in a good way. The 3 super guilds had essentially become big jokes worldwide. What was meant to be a light faction victory, bolstered by 3 of the strongest guilds in the game, had turned into a dark coronation. Everyone discussed in detail the elaborate trap the 3 guilds had set up for Blood God, but in the end, it was Blood God who had won. And he hadn't just won, he had raped the whole damn thing by flipping the table on them. Not only did he casually defeat the many armies that joined together to annihilate the Blood Hall, but he also managed to capture the nearby cities, bringing in a massive vampire army from somewhere. Every new city that fell triggered another wave of vampire converts. Vampire-only shops started popping up in conquered cities, selling gear unavailable to any other race. Passive racial buffs leaked onto the forums like night vision, stealth movement bonuses, and blood affinity enhancements. Players who had once mocked the Dark Faction's edgy vampire cosplay were now desperately trying to join. It looked like the Blood Hall battle had also finally ended. Part of the massive army flooded the battlefield, after which the Light Faction army and the 3 guild armies were completely wiped out. They didn't even stand a fighting chance. Not even one player managed to flee with his life from the battlefield. It was a full-blown massacre. Everything happened in the blink of an eye, and now there were vampires everywhere in and around Niera. What was once a small, fickle vampire base and a random basic blood hall had now become a full-blown vampire territory. Even the system map changed to officially depict the area as a red territory. The war was finally over, and Blood God and the vampires had won. It was hands down a badass, blood-boiling victory which made everyone look at Blood God in a whole new light. The man was without a doubt the top fucking player in the entire world. He had actually achieved the impossible, and then some.
While the entire world was in an uproar, Damon calmly returned to the Blood Hall, which was bursting with activity. Now that Hinata had somehow brought over a ridiculous amount of backup, the war resolved itself. Damon only waited for some time to absorb as much blood essence as he could. After that, the army became scattered and started chasing the runaways and the few players and NPCs here and there. Damon did not wait around for that and returned to the Blood Hall. The whole place was now extremely crowded. It was not just the Blood Hall. The entire nearest city was brimming with vampires, and a lot of things were happening here and there. The vampires had descended in masses, and these were not the inexperienced players. They were experienced vampires from the Crimson Mountains, and they started taking care of business. Damon knew he had to attend to many duties now as the city lord, but he did not care about it right this second. Everything could wait. He gave a few instructions to Varnix and Malia, the 3rd follower he hadn't seen in a while. This was the perfect chance for her to show her administrative abilities, so he was curious to see just how capable she was. Setting all that aside, there was only one thing he cared about most at the moment. Damon quickly rushed over to the private chambers in the Blood Hall, the ones in his section. He had already sent out orders not to allow anyone into his section, so when he entered, there were only a couple of attendants running around here and there. Damon did not mind them and quickly entered the first room. There, lying on a luxurious bed in the center of the room, was Aurora. She lay motionless atop the crimson silk-draped bed, her body curled slightly. Her breathing was ragged, and it looked like she was suffering a lot. Damon's heart ached. When he had enclosed himself in the cocoon, he had assumed that everyone would be targeting him. After all, he had made a big spectacle of himself. He didn't even think that the bastard would go after Aurora instead of him, but it looked like the two of them already knew each other, which made everything that much more complicated. In the end, Aurora had paid the price for guarding him. He had already heard from Blood Rain how the woman had repeatedly thrown herself into harm's way just to protect him, not even caring about the golden hand that had literally squeezed the life out of her. Damon clenched his fists in frustration. He had once again made his loved ones suffer. He walked over and sat down next to Aurora, took her hand, and patted her on the head. Aurora was completely out of it. She didn't even notice his presence. Damon immediately pulled up his system interface to call Arya. He hadn't contacted the little alchemist for a while now, giving her time and space, but now he did not care about that. "Do you have any progress on the soul healing potion?" Arya stammered and hesitated on the other side, not giving any proper response. Damon quickly shut it down. "I don't care if it's incomplete or if it's just 1% effective. Get here fast and bring everything you have." Arya could understand the urgency in his voice and quickly arrived within minutes. When she walked into the room, she finally understood what had happened. "I am sorry, Blood God. I did not even know that there was a battle going on. That's fine. Don't worry about it. Your strength is not in combat. I don't expect you to fight for me." Damon nodded, still patting Aurora's head. "She is suffering a lot. She experienced several soul attacks. I think her soul is severely damaged. Can you help? Do you have anything that can help?" Arya's expression hardened as she hurried to Aurora's side, already pulling out vials from her satchel. The familiar scent of alchemical reagents filled the air. "I can stabilize her, maybe," she murmured as she opened one and passed it to Damon. Damon lifted Aurora's head and helped her drink it. Her body flinched ever so slightly. A faint tremor passed through her limbs, her eyelashes quivered, and her ragged breathing slowed just a touch, but it was nowhere near enough. "Give me more." Arya did not delay. She took out more of the vials and handed them to Damon. "The effect is only going to reduce with each one." Damon nodded and continued feeding her. Thankfully, her condition stabilized after she drank several vials. As the last drops of the 20th potion slid past her lips, color returned to her face, and she visibly seemed to be doing a lot better. "Blood God," she murmured as she inched closer to him. Her fingers weakly reached out, brushing against his arm as though to confirm he was really there. Damon immediately leaned in, catching her trembling hand and clasping it between his palms. "I'm here," he said softly. "You don't need to speak, just rest." Aurora smiled and then fell asleep. Her expression softened into something peaceful, and she no longer seemed to be in pain. Even though she still felt weak, her condition overall improved. Damon let out a sigh of relief. The innate regeneration ability of a fallen angel is indeed terrifying. Thanks to Arya's potions, the worst of it was already over. "Thank you." He let Aurora gently rest on the bed and stood up. Arya nodded. "It's no big deal. You got me all the ingredients. I simply did a little work, that's all." Damon nodded and did not say anything more. He was not in a particularly talkative mood at the moment. There were still 2 more people hurt because of him. He walked out of the room and went to the next room where Allura was resting. Thankfully, her condition was not as bad as Aurora's to begin with. Damon let out a small sigh of relief as she helped Allura drink a few potions, and the vampire somewhat recovered. At least, she was not in pain anymore. In fact, she was even able to sit up and talk to him. "My lord, thank you for treating me." She started to get out of bed to bow to him when Damon held her hand and forced her back onto the bed. "There is no need for all of this. Just rest. Thank you for watching my back when I needed it." Damon leaned forward and placed a kiss on her forehead, making Allura instantly blush. Normally, she was the provocative one, but today Damon's actions made her completely speechless. "Take some rest now," Damon stressed again, as he walked out of the room, giving her some space. "This is good," Arya smiled, as the two of them closed the door and walked over to the next room. Kate should also be fine. I was worried that all three of them were badly hurt, but it looked like Aurora's case was extremely severe because that guy targeted her specifically. I think so too. Damon then opened the door when he completely froze. Lying on the bed, Kate looked deathly pale. More importantly, he could feel it. Her heart was barely beating, her blood essence was sluggish, and her entire being was closer to death than to life. Damon's face dropped as he hurriedly rushed to her side. He immediately activated his blood heal, a powerful healing skill that used his blood essence to heal the target, but it was doing nothing at all. "Give me the vials," he desperately looked at Arya. Arya also had a grave look on her face as she handed over all the vials in her possession. She had about 100 left, and she took them all out. Damon's entire body trembled as he lifted Kate's head. Her skin was ice cold, colder than a corpse. Even her lips, once rosy with vitality, had turned a dull gray. "No, no, no, no," he muttered under his breath, his composure cracking for the first time in a long while. "Stay with me, Kate. Don't you dare leave me now." He tilted her head back and poured the first vial between her lips. Nothing, not even a twitch. Her heart was still barely responding, its faint thump weaker than a dying ember. Damon clenched his teeth so hard that blood trickled from his gums. He fed her a second vial, then a third, then 10 more. There was still no response. Damon did not give up. He continued feeding her one vial after another desperately. Seeing him in this state, Arya quietly excused herself. "I will make more of these now. I think I can improve their quality after observing everyone's condition." Damon did not even hear her. He simply hugged Kate and continued to feed her more and more potions. There was still a chance that when she died, she could merely respawn in a graveyard and there would be nothing wrong with her. But something told me that this was not the case. He didn't know what to do now. What was he supposed to do now? Right, Hinata, the vampires. He gently placed Kate on the bed and immediately disappeared. The next second, he appeared in the middle of the hall full of vampires. And these were not just any vampires. They were the elders of the main families of the Crimson Mountains. And Damon now stood alone, facing all of them at once. The atmosphere shifted the instant Damon appeared. Conversations died mid-sentence, the sound of armor and robes brushing against stone halting in unison. The crimson banners above the hall swayed gently as a suffocating silence descended over everyone present. All the crimson eyes landed on the single vampire who was standing at the center of the hall, still wearing his battle-worn gear that was not even worth mentioning in front of what the others in the hall were wearing. But this only added extra mystery to the new Nira City Blood Hall Lord, who had appeared out of nowhere and achieved so much in such a short period of time. The many elders of the vampire families curiously looked at Damon and the obnoxious title hanging over his head, displayed brightly for everyone to see. Blood God. What a ridiculous, arrogant title. Many had, in fact, expected a flamboyant fool when they heard of him, a fool who wanted to be rescued from the big mess he had dug himself into. But when they arrived here, everything was completely unexpected. The flamboyant fool was not at all a flamboyant fool. Instead, he was a supreme master strategist who had somehow lured all the neighboring city armies to attack him at the same time, only to turn around and launch a surprise attack on them at the last minute. While the strategy seemed simple enough, not everyone had the ability to hold down the armies for so long, which was the only way the plan would have panned out. If there had been even a single slip, then everything would have collapsed, and the army would have raided the lone city and obliterated it without sparing any effort. Such a task was almost impossible. And yet, this young blood expert had done it. He had done it through sheer dominance, through terror, cunning, and blood.
The proof of that was written across every scar on his armor, every smear of crimson that hadn't yet dried. The scent of death still clung to him like a mantle. Many of the elders gave him an approving nod. The fact that this man was here right now and not relaxing and enjoying himself, indulging in debaucherous victory celebrations, was another proof of his mindset and temperament. Unlike the young bloods, he was well seasoned to not lose himself in all the glory and chaos that came with power and victory. Finally, one of the vampires sitting at the far corner of the throne room leaned forward, revealing himself from the shadows. His crimson eyes gleamed beneath a mane of silver hair, and his dark red robe was drenched in centuries of power. Clearly, he was a high-ranking elder from one of the main families, a proud vampire of the highest noble lineage. "So," the vampire drawled, "this is the infamous blood god everyone speaks of. I half expected a pretender, not a man who walks in wearing the scent of war still clinging to him." A few soft chuckles rippled across the room, but they died instantly when Damon's cold gaze turned toward them. The vampire elder did not seem to care about Damon's attitude, but someone else quickly pointed it out. "Boy, you are addressing the elder of the Karakan family. Don't just stand there like a statue. Kneel down and pay your respect first." The command snapped through the hall like a whip, sharp and authoritative, but Damon didn't move. He didn't even blink. Every pair of crimson eyes flicked between the speaker and Damon, as if watching a fuse burn down toward an explosion. When Damon finally spoke, his voice was calm. He turned his head toward the vampire who had dared to demand it. "I don't kneel." Unexpectedly, he then turned toward the elder and bowed slightly. "This junior greets the Karakan family elder. My lord, you have my deepest and sincerest gratitude for appearing here when we needed you the most and saving our blood hall." Even though Damon was not completely obedient and subservient, his attitude and gestures were polite enough, and his words gave a lot of face to the main families. Everyone knew that he did not need any help, and for him to speak in this manner showed that he was not a brash, arrogant brat whose head did not become too heavy from a single victory. The elder from the Karakan family chuckled quietly. "I like you, young vampire. You are not a bad seedling at all. Calm eyes, firm tone, and enough spine not to crumble under pressure. Good. The Crimson Mountains have seen far too many who mistake fear for respect." He leaned back in his seat, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "But tell me, blood god, now that you have taken the first step, what do you intend to do next? How do you plan on ruling this small territory within the Light Faction continent when there will be another war at your doorstep in a heartbeat? Do you have the strength to defend against the entire Light Faction continent?" Damon immediately shook his head without any pretense. "I do not possess that kind of strength, my lord, and it was never my intention to vie for the Light Faction continent all on my own. I merely wanted to try my best and obtain a small foothold, which I proudly present to the main families of the Crimson Mountains as a tribute." Damon's words shocked almost everyone in the huge throne room, including the elder, and the vampires immediately began to murmur among themselves. Did he just say tribute? Is he giving the city away? Another scoffed softly. Nobody could believe that the vampire who calls himself Blood God actually offered everything he had won from the war to the Crimson Mountains. The Karakan elder, however, remained silent. His sharp gaze never left Damon. His smile then suddenly widened, and the elder chuckled again. "You are a shrewd one, aren't you?" While everyone else seemed to be discussing the foolish behavior of simply handing over all the territory without any terms or conditions, or even any rewards, the Karakan elder seemed to know what was really going on. A single territory in the middle of the enemy faction, like this, was pretty much a bleeding resource.
There was not much profit to be had, and one needed a massive army to even protect the territory. There was simply no way for a C rank like Damon without any backing or clan support to control a territory like this. It would only end up being a losing battle that would cost him a lot. Instead, by offering everything without any demand, the young lord had once again shown his strategic prowess. Even someone from the Karakan family would only lose face if they accepted such a tribute, stripping the valiant and heroic young lord of his position. The elder now had no choice except to allow him to continue as the Niera city lord while also accepting the majority of the responsibility. It was a lose-lose deal, packaged as a free offer. Another bold move from the young vampire lord. The Karakan elder was tempted to call Damon on it, but the truth was that even they had been itching for a war with the Light faction for a long time now. Even though he knew he was being taken for a ride, he did not bother refusing it. "Fine, let it be as you wish. The main families will each take a city under their control, and you will continue to remain as the lord of Niera City." The man laughed again, giving Damon another nod of approval. However, the wily old vampire made sure to share the burden of the undertaking among all the main families, and not just put the whole weight on the Karakan family. The other main families also did not seem to mind. After all, everyone was excited to finally have a foothold in the Light faction. If it were just Niera City, it was nothing much, but this was 7 cities in total, a pretty big deal. One by one, all the other elders cleared their throats and voiced out their approval. Damon was not familiar with any of them. Demora Valoros from the Valoros family was the only one whom he recognized. Even in his last life, he never had a chance to see any of these prominent figures. Normal players couldn't exactly come in contact with the main families so easily, but now everything had changed. Damon's plan had also worked perfectly. In all honesty, he never expected the Blood Hall battle to become such a big event. This was a gain beyond his expectations. He would have to thank the super guilds for this unexpected gift. Normally, he would have been over the moon about this new development and would have been all over the main families of Crimson Mountains, even perhaps milking more benefits from them. But right now, his mindset was different. He did not really care about any of this. There was only one thing on his mind. Damon did not bother talking any more politics right this moment and quickly came to the main thing he wanted to talk about. If he had started with this right away, they would have seen through his desperation, so he had to come here in a roundabout fashion. There was perhaps more he could do, but he did not have the stability to think about all of that and plot in detail right this moment. Kate's expressionless face was the only thing on his mind. Damon's hand curled into fists as he once again spoke up. "There is another matter I wish to address. One of mine was struck down during the battle. Her soul was damaged beyond repair. I suspect that the Light faction has pioneered some unique soul techniques that are very difficult to block." The room that had moments ago been filled with faint murmurs and polite political tension suddenly went still. The elder's amusement faded instantly. Soul damage was clearly not something vampires took lightly. Wounds could heal, limbs could regrow, but a fractured soul was a death sentence beyond death itself. The Karakan elder's faint smile vanished. His crimson eyes narrowed as he leaned forward slightly, resting one clawed finger on the armrest of his throne. "Soul damage, you say?" he asked, his tone suddenly sharp. "Are you certain?" Damon nodded, his expression grim. "She was struck by light, unlike anything I've ever seen. All the potions and skills I currently have in my possession are useless to heal an injury like that. Before we proceed further with our grand conquest, I suggest we first find a solution to this problem. Otherwise, we might face a roadblock very difficult to recover from." Damon tried his best to sound neutral. Now he could only hope that he was not seen through. A few seconds passed in silence when Demora Valoros finally spoke up. You are right in bringing up this issue. We might have to pause our march and consolidate this territory if the Light faction has truly succeeded in creating a powerful soul attack. We have a few talented alchemists in our family. I can send them over to take a look at the injury. We can prepare accordingly afterwards." The Karakan elder nodded slowly, his sharp gaze drifting between Damon and Demora. "That would be wise," he added. "If the Light faction truly has developed such a weapon, we'd be fools to advance blindly. Soul magic is very difficult to decipher. If they've harnessed divine light to pierce the essence of the undead, then the war has entered a new age." His eyes flicked back to Damon. "You said this happened during the battle? Describe the attack." Damon was annoyed at how long everything was taking, but if he pushed this any further, then things would be revealed, and he might not end up getting what Kate needed so easily. He could only explain things for now. The discussion continued for a while, and the alchemist's visits were arranged. However, it was still going to take a few days to set everything in motion, days which Kate did not have. Damon could only grit his teeth and push his luck once again. "Is there any soul-mending potion available in the meantime?"
The elders exchanged looks as if they were seeing what the other was going to respond. Many then shook their heads. Even the Karakan family elder responded with a big no. "Not that we know of," he said with a sigh. He looked sincere enough, but Damon could tell that the old vampire was clearly hiding some things. Not just him, but everyone was. He clenched his fists tightly as he was not exactly in a position to push this any further. Now was not the time to start another fight. There was nothing more for him to do here. Damon swallowed his anger and bowed a little again. "Then please excuse me. I have some things I need to attend to before I can further address some issues with the esteemed families." The Karakan elder gave a slow nod. "Of course," he said evenly. "You've had a long campaign, young lord. See to your matters. We will remain in the city for a few days to oversee the transition and secure our foothold." Damon could feel their gazes following him as he turned and made his way out of the hall. Dozens of crimson eyes were studying every step he took, some curious, some respectful, but most calculating. He could almost taste their thoughts, but they didn't see the trembling fury beneath his calm expression, the blood aura simmering just under his skin. Damon did not return immediately to Kate's room. He waited outside the throne room for a few minutes when a familiar face walked over to him. Hinata had an awkward expression on her face, and Damon knew exactly why she was wearing such a look. "You have a deal for me, I presume?" Damon asked with an indifferent face. Hinata nodded with a bitter smile. "I am sorry. I am helpless in this matter. If I could, I would have already—" Damon stopped her. "You don't have to explain. I understand very well. Nothing is free in this world. So what is the deal?" Hinata sighed. "My family is willing to share a soul-mending healing elixir recipe with you, but—" She hesitated. "Go on," Damon nodded. "They want to know what exactly you did back in that demon city. They want to know how you defeated the demon lord's successor without even crossing into C rank." Damon sneered inwardly. He had already expected this. In fact, he was counting on this. Even though he had tried his best to remain calm and not sound desperate, these old vampires had decades and perhaps centuries of experience. He did not expect them to be fooled by his acting so easily. They were bound to see through him and his need for a soul healing potion. It was only a matter of time for the bargaining to start, and now they have stated the price for it. "Listen, Blood God, this is your private secret. I suggest that you don't concede so easily. If you wait a few days, maybe I can—" Damon once again interrupted her. "It's fine. I will agree to it. I will tell you all about that day, but first, can I have the elixir recipe? It's not that I don't trust you, it's just that I do not have time on my side right now." "Are you sure? It's only a recipe. You can always—" She started, but she quickly stopped as she saw the serious look on Damon's face. Here." They had actually authorized me to hand over 5 of these potion bottles in addition to the recipe in case you tried to haggle. You can have it. She also handed the alchemical recipe along with it. This is the correct one. It's not a fake. You can trust me. Damon nodded gratefully. He had no doubt about the authenticity of the recipe. The vampires were always on the lookout for alchemists, and if he managed to make potions out of this recipe, then they would approach that alchemist and try to poach them to their side. It was only a win-win for them. As for the extra potions, he could tell that Hinata had a role to play in that. Thank you. I will not forget this. You have helped me more than you know. I will always owe you one. Damon truly meant what he said. He also did not plan to renege on his deal. He would tell them everything they wanted to know because he had a reason to do so. For his main plan in the Crimson Mountains to work, he needed the main families to start fighting with each other, and this seemed to be a good enough starting point as any. I will tell you everything about the Demon City secrets, Damon started explaining. Hinata nodded and then listened carefully. The thing is, every demon city, or at least some of their cities, has a secret hidden within them. It's a weapon, a fail-safe mechanism to ensure that the city absolutely doesn't fall into the wrong hands. But at the same time, it's also a double-edged sword. What kind of weapon? It's a magic skill crystal, one that contains a powerful demonic soul. When the crystal is broken, the demonic soul is released, and, without proper preparations, it is bound to take control of the strongest vessel in the vicinity. I just took a gamble that the Demon Lord's heir would be that vessel, and after that, you know what happened. Hinata's eyes widened. A demonic soul crystal, she whispered. Her fingers twitched at her side, betraying the excitement that even she couldn't hide. This is huge. With this, we can unleash chaos into a demon city before we begin our assault. This would reduce our efforts by half. This is a huge advantage. You have truly been generous to us. The soul recipe we have given you is nothing compared to this. Damon did not say anything, but Hinata nodded with determination. Thank you. This is not the end of this. I will inform my family elders. I will make sure they compensate you properly. Trust me. You will not regret sharing this information with us. You can count on me. Damon did not wait for Hinata to leave. He excused himself and rushed over to Kate. Inside his mind, Bloodrain was fuming. My liege, I hate it. You should not be kneeling and bowing to these dogs, begging them for scraps. You were born to rule. All these so-called noble families should cower in your presence, not demand things from you. It's just the life of a single human woman. Why not simply let it go? The fallen angel is now doing much better, and she is the more useful one after all. Bloodrain wanted to continue talking, but she abruptly froze. Even within the depth of his soul, the weapon spirit could suddenly feel an intense, murderous aura. She knew that moment that she had crossed a line and closed her mouth. Damon silently walked over to Kate, who still showed no signs of improvement. He looked at the 5 vials in his hand and then at Arya, who was sitting on the side and was busy with a cauldron. He threw one of the vials to her. Here, take this, and this recipe. Do you think you can make the soul-mending potion better? He had not much faith in the potion shared by the Valeros family, but he did not have any other option at the moment. He could already tell that there was nothing poisonous within it, so he might as well give it a try. Arya accepted the potion and wordlessly got to work. She was in her work mode and was completely serious. There was no more nervousness or indecisiveness in her behavior. She moved as if she was in her own world, and Damon let her do her thing. With the 4 remaining potion bottles in his hands, he went over to Kate's side again and sat down on the bed. He gently propped her up and started feeding her all the potion he had left little by little. At first, he had not much hope, but slowly Kate started breathing better. Her blood flow became less sluggish. Even a faint stream of mana flow returned to her body. Damon's eyes immediately lit up. He allowed himself a flicker of hope. Kate's skin began to lose its ashen pallor, a faint flush of warmth creeping back into her cheeks. Her fingers, limp and cold before, twitched slightly, as if reaching for something in her sleep. Damon's heart thudded heavily in his chest. He could feel it. Her soul was still fractured, but the potion was holding it together, buying time, precious, fleeting time. Damon brushed a strand of hair from Kate's forehead, his touch trembling. "Just some more time, okay? Give me some more time, and I will find something to heal you. I will turn the entire world if I have to. Just please, give me some more time." Damon hugged her closely and kissed her on the forehead. Then he let her gently rest on the bed again, when unexpectedly Kate opened her mouth and mumbled, "Damon, it's cold. Don't leave me. It's very cold. I hate it." Damon's heart clenched painfully. This was all because of him. If he had been stronger... He immediately pulled her into his arms, wrapping her in his warmth. "I'm here. You're not cold anymore. Do you hear me? I won't leave you. Not now, not ever." "But what about her, then?" A small smile appeared on Kate's face. "You love her too, don't you?" Damon froze. "No, I don't. You are the only one that matters." Damon did not even hesitate before he answered her, but it looked like Kate did not buy it. "You're a bad liar." Kate smiled. "It's fine. You should be with her, not me. I'm weak and pathetic. She is the one strong enough to stand beside you, not me. So choose her. I will be fine." Damon pulled her closer and hugged her tightly. "Shut up and stop talking nonsense. I love you, okay? I am not going anywhere. Nothing matters more to me than you do. I'm sorry I was useless to let this happen to you, but just give me this one chance. Nothing like this will ever happen again. Just save your strength and give me a little time. I will make all of this okay." Kate smiled again, nuzzling happily against him. "I really don't care even if I die right now. Dying in your arms feels like heaven." "Shh! I asked you to shut up, didn't I?" Kate smiled and remained silent. A few drops of tears spilled from her eyes, which Damon quietly wiped away. In a few minutes, she drifted asleep. For many things ran in his mind. Then he gently placed her on the bed and stood up to leave. "Arya, look after her. I will be back." "I will be here. I can make more of this. Just give me some time, and I will make sure she is doing better." Damon only gave a nod and started walking outside. Immediately, Varnix rushed over to him. "My lord, there are many waiting to talk to you." The vampire gulped. "They are from the main families." Damon had expected as much. Valeros' family had done it quicker because they already knew what they wanted from him. The others simply took a little extra time. They all knew he needed something, and they did not waste this opportunity. "All right, I will visit all of them." Damon walked towards the first chamber where the vampire from the Karakin family was waiting. Surprisingly, a blood general was waiting for him. Not just any ordinary vampire. "Tell me, to what do I owe this pleasure?" The blood general stood tall as Damon entered, his crimson armor gleaming in the torchlight. The man's presence alone commanded attention. His aura was heavy and disciplined. When he bowed, it was shallow but proper, more courtesy than submission. "Lord Blood God," he greeted. "I come bearing an offer from the Karakin family." After a brief pause, the man continued, "We heard of your need for a soul restoration formula. Our family indeed has a few potions that are capable of achieving such a miraculous feat, but we paid a heavy price to obtain these potions. Please don't misunderstand my words. The Grand Elder is still willing to give you these potions. It's just that we need a small favor in return." Damon smiled. "Go ahead. Name your price." After a few minutes, Damon walked out of the chamber. For the next hour, he was pretty much hearing the same thing again and again. Well, the same thing, but in different terms and conditions. Soon, he had about 10 requests.
Each family was looking for something different, and all of them offered their own version of soul-healing potions, pills, recipes, and items. One asked for a unique item only found in a light faction dungeon. Another asked for the assassination of a priestess. Another one asked for a weapon blueprint that only a specific blacksmith had. There were all sorts of requests, but the one thing they had in common was that they all could only be accomplished by someone in the light faction. The old foxes knew very well that he would have many connections with the light faction, so they did not hold back. Damon as well simply accepted their proposals and did not bother haggling. Now was not the time to do anything like that. He silently walked out of the last meeting chamber and then headed straight to the training area. Varnix rushed over immediately. "My lord, did you call for me?" "Set up a 1 to 10 time dilation training room for me. Don't disturb me for the next 5 hours." Before heading out, Damon first wanted to consolidate what he had gained from the battle. He gave Varnix a few minutes to set up everything and quietly entered the secluded training. The first thing he did was pull up his system screen. The next second, a bunch of system notifications popped out. Ding! Naira City Blood Hall has successfully defended the purification raid. Ding! You have been promoted from Blood Hall Lord to City Lord. Ding! You have gained a new title. Damon let out a deep breath as he briefly skimmed over the system rewards. He had received a couple of unique titles which gave him a 20% stat boost in total. This was pretty impressive, and not many titles gave this much effect. The reward truly reflected the difficulty of the task. He also received more fame points, notoriety points, and gold coins. These were not too staggering. At this point, 1 million gold coins were pretty much nothing to him. Then there was the war chest reward. Damon opened it, and immediately the war chest dissolved into a swirl of crimson motes. When the motes disappeared, 3 items lay in front of him. Damon frowned. This was something unexpected. He had never heard of anything like this before in either of his lives. There were all kinds of treasure chests, but war chests were definitely something unique and rare. Even his first victory did not net him something like this. There should definitely be some good things inside. Damon quickly took out the first item. It was a map of some kind. Promptly, a system notification appeared. Ding! You have received the treasure map to Beluga Isle. Damon let out a sigh and tossed it into his spatial ring. The next thing looked like a gem of some sort. He picked it up and examined it closely. It was a crimson crystal, roughly the size of a thumb, pulsing faintly like a beating heart. Ding! You have obtained Crimson Heartstone, unique, bloodline artifact. Description: a crystallized heart core of an ancient blood monarch. Can be fused with your blood core to permanently increase vitality, regeneration, and bloodline potential. Warning: fusion may awaken dormant bloodline traits or trigger a bloodline trial. Success rate 65%. Failure will result in bloodline instability for 30 days. It was a good item, an item Damon even desperately needed at this point, but it came with its own drawbacks. Damon could only bitterly laugh at this point. He already had so much instability in his body that he definitely did not care about a little more of it. But that did not mean he could blindly use it. That little more instability could push him over the cliff he did not know he was standing on. So he did not activate it immediately. Everything needed some preparation. "Blood Rain, are you there or are you still sulking?" Damon called. "I am here, my liege. I am always here with you," came the response. "So you were sulking?" Damon chuckled, but then his expression turned serious. "Do not ever repeat what you said. People are not disposable items. Kate, Mark, my family, Aurora, and even you, all of you are precious to me, and I will not give up on any of you that easily. Do you understand? I can be the ruthless villain you want, and I can still love you all very much." Blood Rain became quiet. Then she slowly murmured, "Forgive me, my liege. I spoke out of turn."
Damon did not bother saying anything further on that matter. "What do you think about this crimson heartstone?" I am sorry to say this to you, my liege, but I don't think that the item is strong enough to affect your bloodline. A mere blood monarch's heart crystal wouldn't be able to bring out anything from your bloodline. It will only be wasted if it's used on you." Damon raised his brow. What she said made sense. The boost in attributes was still a good side effect he could gain, but he could gain that anyway, even with alternate methods. Maybe it was better that he gave it to someone else who might gain more from it. Damon tossed it into his spatial ring and then took out the last item from the war chest loot. Surprisingly, it was nothing flashy or spectacular. It was just a small piece of scrap metal that had an odd discoloration. Inspect also didn't work on it. Clearly, it was some sort of open quest. Right now, he already had a bunch of stuff on his plate which he needed to work on first, so he could only come to this when time or chance permits. Damon shrugged and prepared to toss the scrap metal into his spatial storage when suddenly 2 ghosts shot out from within him with extreme urgency. "No! Don't! Bind it first!" Both Bloodrain and the old vampire from the blacksmith trial popped out of Damon and were now standing side by side in front of him, looking at the piece of scrap metal with shock and horror. Damon froze mid-motion, his hand still hovering over the unassuming shard of metal. The frenzied look on the old vampire's face was clear, and even Bloodrain, in her semi-red spirit form, definitely felt agitated. The sudden panic in their voices made his instincts flare. This was the first time he was getting this sort of reaction, not from one, but 2 of his spirit friends. His gaze flickered between the 2 spirits. "You're both acting weird. What is this thing?" Before the 2 could answer, another voice chimed in. "How will a pig know a celestial artifact's value?" It was the snake woman, and like always, she was full of shit as she spoke with disdain. "But I must say, your luck is quite good." Damon's face twitched, but before he could speak his mind, Bloodrain shot forward on his behalf. "Shut the fuck up, bitch! Who are you to talk to my king like this? Do you know just how much he had to fight and struggle in this battle? The system itself has recognized his efforts and given a reward accordingly. How dare you belittle his achievements?" The snake spirit was not fazed. She once again responded with a scowl. "Pooh-ha! He struggled so much because he was weak. If it was my king, he would have dominated the whole thing from start to finish. My king is the undefeated Venom King. When he walked into a battleground, his enemies fell by masses. He was not weak like this bloodsucker to rely on petty schemes and flimsy alliances. My king would never bow to another." Bloodrain's crimson eyes flared like burning coals. "Then your so-called king must have died choking on his own poison," she spat, voice laced with venom of her own. "Because I don't see him standing here now, do I?" The serpent spirit hissed sharply. Her spectral form suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and her entire silhouette was burning with some sort of emerald fire. "You dare? Watch your tongue, blood wraith. If not for the soul seals, I'd already be dead," Bloodrain finished with a smirk, arms crossed. "Now shut up and don't disturb us. No one invited you here anyways." The air between them vibrated with killing intent, their clashing auras distorting the training chamber's temperature, one side boiling hot with crimson rage, the other icy with green venom. The other spirit, the old vampire, silently watched these 2 go at it as if he was enjoying a catfight while munching on some popcorn. Damon pinched the bridge of his nose. "Enough!" His voice wasn't loud, but it caught the attention of the 3 spirits. "You 2 can piss on each other's graves later. Right now, I want to know what this scrap is." The snake spirit scoffed, but reined herself in. "That scrap
she spoke with hatred and bitterness, is a fragment, broken and chipped away from something whole, something at least mythical grade and potentially celestial grade. Bloodrain quickly added, "My liege, quickly bind the fragment with a drop of your blood, otherwise the thing might just disappear right in front of you. I have heard void holes forming randomly around items like this, sucking in everything in sight, including the mythical grade item. These items are too strong and fate-defying. It's not easy to hold on to them. Now, my liege, do it now." Damon did not hesitate. He immediately pricked his thumb and let a drop of blood fall onto the fragment. The instant his blood touched the metal, a violent surge of energy erupted, sending ripples of energy that cracked the stone floor beneath him. A blood-red pulse expanded outward, bending space itself. The air shimmered, distorted, as though reality had been struck by a hammer. Damon's body stiffened. The blood drop sank into the fragment. Then came the sound, a deep, ancient clang. Everything shook for a moment. The entire world trembled, making many powerful figures pause and stare into the distance. But it was only for a moment. When the powerful figures tried to sense the source of the disturbance, nothing could be found. Meanwhile, runes began crawling silently across the fragment's surface, glowing in molten crimson and gold, forming a strange circular sigil. Bloodrain gasped. "Well done, my liege. Congratulations! The fragment has recognized you." The snake spirit's mocking smirk faltered, her expression turning uneasy. No, impossible. No mortal blood should be able to resonate with it that quickly. Even the old vampire spirit's eyes widened, but then he suddenly shouted, "It's not over yet! Brace yourself!" Suddenly, Damon's vision went white. An excruciating pain assaulted him as he felt himself pulled somewhere deep and dark, somewhere he did not belong. After a second, he found himself standing in the middle of nowhere. Darkness all around him. No, not all around him. There was something bright and fiery in front of him, hot enough to burn him entirely in the fraction of a second. Damon's heart sank for a second. He had a feeling that if this thing burns him, then not even a trace of him would be left behind. It would be as if he had never existed. But thankfully, everything simmered down. He was able to open his eyes and see. In front of him was an ancient, broken forge, suspended over an abyss of fire. Chains of flame erupted from the abyss and twisted around him, but they did not hurt him. A colossal anvil floated, fractured, scorched, part of its form fading into the void. From within that anvil came a voice. It wasn't loud, yet it carried infinite weight, shaking his very soul. "Bloodsucker, you do not possess the qualifications to stand in front of me." Damon stood frozen, unable to move even a muscle. "I am what remains of the world anvil, the forge that shaped creation and unmade gods." The voice rumbled like thunder over molten seas. "You dare feed me your essence?" A low, booming chuckle echoed. "Very well. Since you are here, let us see if you are worthy to wield what was meant for gods." A blinding surge of heat exploded from beneath Damon's feet, and the forge roared to life. Rivers of molten metal cascaded through the cracks of the broken anvil, forming glowing streams that circled him like serpents of living fire. The oppressive heat should have seared him to ash, but instead, the flames licked at his skin without burning, as if testing his endurance, his very essence. All around him, fragments of the void ignited with visions, flashes of divine wars, titans hammering worlds into shape, blades that split stars, and God screaming as a massive weapon of some sort devoured them. Damon couldn't see everything clearly. He was only able to see some of it.
The forge was showing him its history, its wrath, its reason for existing. The voice of the world anvil boomed again, deeper this time. The forge tests not your strength, bloodsucker, but your resolve. To shape creation is to endure destruction. To forge is to bleed. Before Damon could respond, chains of molten flame shot upward, wrapping around his arms and dragging him toward the anvil. Every link that touched him sent agony through his soul. It wasn't pain in flesh, but in identity, a hammer beating against the essence of who he was. Bloodrain's voice faintly echoed from somewhere distant, distorted by the burning void calling his name, but he couldn't reach her. After a moment, he even forgot that she ever existed. The anvil flared, and from its center, a hammer formed, ancient, massive, yet weightless, floating before him. "Feed me your will, and be forgotten like the rest." Damon's vision blurred. His body was breaking apart into streams of red motes of light, all flying towards the anvil. He tried to resist, but bit by bit, he couldn't even remember why he was resisting. In the blink of an eye, almost the entirety of him got sucked in. Only a small sliver of him lingered outside, not knowing any rhyme or reason. The veil glowed again, and this small part of him as well started to fly towards the anvil. However, right at this moment, this small part of him pulsed, a small pulse, but strong and steady. The void powers of the anvil tried to suck him in with full force, but nothing was working. This small mote of light continued to resist. Bloodsucker, you are not ordinary after all." The voice of the world anvil rumbled again, its tone carrying something new, curiosity. The molten abyss around Damon shifted, its fires bending toward the sliver of his essence that refused to yield. "What is this spark? What are you hiding, child of blood and ruin? This is blood of the primordial flame? Impossible!" The world anvil trembled. The small mote of light glowed brighter, and then Damon's fragmented soul began to reassemble. Crimson motes snapping back together piece by piece. The chains that bound him cracked. One by one they shattered, sending sparks of golden fire scattering into the void. The hammer that floated before him trembled violently and then shattered. The world anvil roared, its molten rivers surging upward like tidal waves. "You might have the blood of the primordial flame, but I am the world anvil. I refuse to yield. You cannot tame me. Now get out of my sanctum." Damon couldn't even react before he was kicked out, and he once again found himself in the training room. For a moment he couldn't breathe. His body convulsed as if his soul had been torn apart and stitched back together with molten thread. Bloodrain and the old vampire rushed to him immediately. "My liege, what happened? Are you all right? I couldn't sense you for a moment." Damon couldn't answer her. He was still shaking and trembling inside out. He sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. It took a few minutes, but he eventually managed to get a grip and calm. He wasn't really hurt anywhere, just exhausted, so he was able to regain his composure. "I am fine, barely," he answered. Before anything else, he quickly took the piece of scrap metal and looked at it. Surprisingly, he was able to inspect it now. Ding! Fragmented mythical grade shoulder plate. Description: a fractured piece of armor once worn by the celestial blacksmith, the first and only being who could wield the world anvil without being consumed. Although incomplete and heavily damaged, this shoulder plate still carries traces of the forge's divine fire and the hammer's will that shaped existence itself. When equipped, all stats are increased by 1,000. Effects: passive, Ember of Creation, enhances crafting and forging efficiency by 50%. Passive, Residual Flame,
absorbs fire and heat-based damage, converting 50% damage into vitality regeneration. Active, world resonance, temporarily channeled the will of the world anvil to enhance any forged item. There is a 50% chance for the grade of the item to upgrade. Warning: the fragment still remembers its creator and its original wielder. It might or might not obey its new owner.
Damon was panting. He couldn't believe what he was reading. The stat buff was huge, but more importantly, the effects listed were mind-blowing. But he then saw the warning at the bottom, and suddenly he had a stinking feeling that the might not obey scenario was going to be a lot more often than the might obey scenario. He could only bitterly smile in the end. What else did he expect? He clearly failed the test the World Anvil gave him. He only managed to stay alive and get back here thanks to his bloodline. And the item in his hand was a mythical grade item, fragmented or not. It looked like the system foresaw all of this happening, which was probably why this was a war chest reward in the first place. There were a lot of broken things and loopholes in the game, but the system never gave anything brokenly powerful this easily. For instance, his bloodline. It might look overpowered at first glance, but if he did not have his previous life knowledge, by now he would have already been dead and long gone. Damon let out a sigh and looked at the broken armor piece. No matter which angle he looked at it from, the thing emitted no aura whatsoever. It might as well be a piece of scrap metal. Working or not, it could at least form a layer of protection on his body, like the egg on his chest. He placed armor on his shoulder, hoping it could stick, just like the egg, or at least give an item equip notification, but it did not. He was neither able to bind it nor equip it like a normal item. With a sigh, Damon summoned blood tendrils that emerged from his body, binding the scrap metal to his shoulder. It looked like from now on he would have to spend some of his energy holding this in place. Blood Rain, the old vampire, and the snake woman curiously looked at him during the whole process. In the end, the old vampire became very impatient and urged him. "Why are you simply looking at it? Try forging something, quickly." "I have never heard of such a godly item before. You are truly lucky, young vampire. You have a great destiny in smithing. You are the next blessed genius born to wield the world anvil. For most of my life, I thought that it was just a random urban legend, but who would have thought that something like this actually existed? You did it again, my genius prodigy. Make your master proud and show me the impossible." Seeing the old vampire rant like a lunatic, Blood Rain gave him a weird look. Of course her king was the best in everything, but to call him a genius blacksmith? Has this spirit gone crazy? The snake woman had a similar expression on her face, but one that was filled with disdain. The old vampire spirit, however, did not care about either of them. He continued to urge Damon to try and forge something. Damon rubbed his temples. He needed to settle things with this old guy first. Otherwise, this was going to continue for a while, and he did not have time for this right this moment. He summoned Goldie, deciding that showing was better than telling. He then took out a piece of ore, some random ore. "Goldie, can you perfectly melt this ore and separate out the impurities?" The little spark immediately got to work and did the deed. The next second, the tiny wisp of flame darted toward the ore, its golden body flickering like a mischievous star. In seconds, the entire chunk began to glow. The impurities bled away as molten droplets, separating themselves from the purified core with almost surgical precision. Within moments, the once rugged lump turned into a perfect sphere of liquid metal shining like a newborn sun. The old vampire's eyes went wide, his jaw practically unhinging. He shouted, "By the ashes of the first forge, what is that? You even possess something like this? You are a genius this entire cosmos has never seen." "Let me stop you right there," Damon sighed. It looked like the guy was so deluded that he still did not understand. "Master,
I have something I need to tell you." He paused and then broke the news like ripping a Band-Aid, fast and swift. "I have no clue about blacksmithing whatsoever." The old vampire froze. For a solid 3 seconds, the ghostly elder simply stared at Damon as if the young vampire had just declared that blood was overrated. Then his translucent face twitched once, twice, before he exploded. "What? No, no, no. You dare stand in front of me wielding the spark of creation itself with the world's most sacred fragment on your shoulder and tell me you know nothing about smithing?" Damon nodded, not saying anything. He allowed the guy a few seconds to process. And when he saw that Damon was indeed being serious, the old ghost became delirious. You absolute calamity of wasted potential!" Bloodrain quickly interrupted the old guy with a loud snort. "Shut your hole, old dog. What do you know? My liege doesn't know anything about blacksmithing. That is true, but if my king decides to learn blacksmithing, then there would be no one in existence who could surpass him." Bloodrain declared proudly, crossing her arms and puffing out her chest as if the argument was already over. "My king could hammer divine ore with his bare hands if he wanted to. He could forge destiny itself into a blade and make the gods kneel to polish it." The old vampire spirit looked utterly scandalized. "Forge destiny? Are you insane, woman?" He sputtered, pointing a trembling spectral finger at her. "How could this useless bloodling, who hasn't forged a single weapon in his entire life, suddenly become someone almighty? Quit your damn delusions, you crazy witch!" Damon ignored the bickering spirits. The time dilation chamber was ruined, and he was exhausted, so he wasn't planning on going ahead with his original plan. He silently stood up and put on some clothes before he walked out of the training room. "Where are you going, brat? It's fine if you have never touched a hammer before in your life. I can teach you from the beginning. It's even better that you are a blank slate. I do not have to deal with any bad habits and teach you everything the right way from the beginning." "All in due time," Damon curtly answered. Sure, he would love to throw away everything and spend his time hammering away without a care in the world, but that was not his life at the moment. Kate's recovery trumped everything else. Damon clenched his fists. He felt completely helpless. Even if he acquired all of those recipes and the ingredients and the potions from the vampire main families, Kate's recovery would still depend on Arya. There was nothing he could do. He was so clueless when it came to the soul. "Do any of you know any soul cultivation technique or soul manipulation technique suitable for me?" Damon suddenly asked. He realized that he had never actually asked Bloodrain or the old man for help. Bloodrain was dormant all this time, and he had jumped straight into a war after forming a bond with the old man. Maybe what he was searching for was right in front of him. Unfortunately, the two mouthy spirits became weirdly silent the moment Damon asked his question. It looked like things were not going to be as easy as he wanted. "Where are you going, brat?" "Is that a no?" he asked again. The old man finally answered, "I do know of a method to temper your body, mind, and soul, but it is currently not suitable for you. The method I know of is closely tied to the path of a master smith. Unless you start walking that path, there is little I can do to help you." Damon frowned. Even though he was inclined to believe the words of the old man, something told him that the bastard was simply forcing him to learn smithing and become his apprentice wholeheartedly, just like he wanted. "I told you already, I cannot do what you want me to do right here, right and now. There will be a time for it, just not now. You can see everything going around me. What makes you think I will drop all of that and pick up a hammer?" The old man became silent. He then cleared his throat and added, "Wait, I haven't finished talking yet.
When I say that the method won't be suitable for you, I was talking about the best method in my repertoire. I still have a few average soul cultivation techniques that you can choose from. They're mostly incomplete, and some of them downright have flaws that could affect you in the future, but for now, they would work wonders for you. Do you know of any soul healing technique? Damon asked again. The old ghost shook his head decisively this time. I don't have any need for such a thing. My technique is good enough to act as both a cultivation technique and a healing technique. I never took any discipline in my life, so I didn't have the necessity to find one either. But you should try talking to my younger generations. I am sure in all these years, they have managed to gather some impressive ones. Damon nodded. He already had a feeling that he would have to do this in the end. The problem was that doing so would give these families a lot of power over him. He could never directly ask them. That was not the way to go. In fact, he had already taken a first step in this direction. The Crimson Mountains were way too peaceful at the moment. In times like this, he couldn't easily get them to cough up things. But if this situation changes, then things would be different. If he could somehow get them embroiled in war from many directions, they would have no chance except to fork out many of their hidden resources to fortify their side. There is nothing like wars to cook up some profit, and he planned to do exactly this. This was why he had casually shared with Hinata the little secret he knew from his last life about some of the demon cities. This was also why he was going to start a rumor about the Abyssal Zone in a few days. The one thing he did not plan was to involve them in his territory conquest, as they would never have agreed to such a thing. But thanks to his friends, the super guilds, even that had now become a reality. Now all he had to do was wait, and soon the entire Crimson Mountains would be drenched in blood and war. He could easily get whatever he wanted from them. This was his original plan, but now there was a big problem. The waiting part. With the super guilds in possession of soul techniques, and not just any soul techniques, compatible soul techniques, waiting was no longer an option. The more he waited, the more his friends and family would be in danger. As long as he had this big glaring weakness, every time they would target him right there until he finally broke down. He needed to somehow fix this first, even if he had to somehow quicken the war along himself. Damon was lost in his thoughts when Blood Rain suddenly interrupted him. "But my liege, why are you searching for soul cultivation techniques? You have no need for things like that. My liege, your abilities are not limited to just blood and bloodlines. This is just a mere fraction of what you are actually capable of." Damon halted mid-stride. He slowly turned his head toward Blood Rain, her crimson mist curling lazily in the air like living smoke. "What do you mean by that?" Blood Rain floated closer, her form solidifying into the faint outline of a woman. "You seek techniques designed for lesser beings. Mortals need methods to cultivate their souls, but you, my liege—" She paused, a faint red glow blooming in her eyes. "You only need to devour. You are a supreme being meant to rule the cosmos. Your soul doesn't need to grow through cultivation. It needs to devour." Damon's eyes widened in shock. If what Blood Rain was saying was the truth, then what was the true extent of what he could do? "My partial bloodline," Damon thought out loud. "So the answers to most of my problems lies on absorbing more and more of my bloodline." Now that I thought about it, this was quite obvious. But the thing is, anyone who had my bloodline would be just as powerful as I was. There was no way I would be able to easily defeat them and devour them. Rather, there was a high possibility that it would be him who gets devoured. While focusing on improving my bloodline was something I needed to work on, other things wouldn't hurt. If I ever found someone with the same bloodline, I needed to be at my strongest. And this wouldn't be a simple task either. If he truly did choose to go this path and attempt to absorb another fraction of his bloodline, then he needed some sort of edge. Damon's eyes lit up. The 3 legendary items in his possession, and possibly a 4th. Well, all were pretty incomplete, but if he somehow manages to complete them, then his strength would explode instantly. Then there was also his body. As long as he tempered his body and boosted his soul some more, then he could finally house his primordial mana core and make full use of it. A plan began to form in his head as he started opening a blood gate to the smithing building he had established through Silvara. "Where are you going, brat?" "It's fine if you have never touched a hammer before in your life. I can teach you from the beginning. It's even better that you're a blank slate. I do not have to deal with any bad habits and teach you everything the right way from the beginning." "All in due time," the old ghost snorted. "In fact, right now, I am taking you to a place like that. There are about 100 humans here who have all wholeheartedly chosen the path of smithing. How about you choose a few of them and teach them?"
Humans? The old ghost was about to say something derisive, but when Damon stepped out of the blood gate into the smithing building, right in the thick of things, the ghost immediately swallowed his words. The sheer sight before him stole even the ghost's arrogance. Several humans filled the sprawling forge hall, each surrounded by a faint aura of mana, sweat, and discipline. Sparks flew like fireflies as molten streams poured into molds, and hammer strikes echoed in perfect rhythm. The ghost's mouth opened, then closed again. For a long moment he simply hovered there, his spectral form flickering in disbelief. This is... He drifted forward, inspecting a few works. Each time the ghost's face only showed surprise, and he nodded in satisfaction as he turned his attention to the next one. "How the hell did you manage to find so many talented young ones?" The ghost was utterly shocked. Damon watched quietly as the old spirit circled a half-finished blade, his fingers brushing through the heat above it. "Their hands are untrained, their hearts reckless, but they will without a doubt walk far in the path of smithing, especially this one." He stopped in front of Lionel, examining his work with wide eyes. "This young lad is truly gifted. Look at the way he is feeling the metal rather than forcing it. He listens to the metal. Every strike is guided by instinct, not brute force. That rhythm? He's syncing his breath with the metal's pulse." Damon's lips curved faintly. Of course Lionel was one of the 3 greatest smiths in the entire continent. How could the old guy not be impressed? The ghost then suddenly jumped to another desk. "This one is also equally impressive. Another true genius," the old vampire praised. This time Damon was also equally shocked. How could he not recognize Matau, the other genius blacksmith of the continent? The thing was, he had not personally recruited him, and yet he was standing here right in front of him. How did this happen? It seemed the word of mouth was more powerful than he expected. Maybe it was a friend of a friend situation. Damon was not complaining. It looked like he had bagged 2 of the 3 genius blacksmiths of the Light Faction continent, and this was an impressive result. Now if this old ghost plays along with his plans, then the problem of making sure they stayed would also be solved. Damon looked at the ghost, and he was still going on and on about how talented Matau was. "This one could reach heights even I did not." Damon interrupted him and came to the main point. "Then teach him." The ghost blinked. "What? You wanted disciples, didn't you? Now you have dozens, and 2 worth your pride. Guide them. Show them what real forging means." The ghost floated back, looking at the hall again. Every anvil beat with life, every young smith sweating and struggling, trying to coax perfection out of imperfection. The old vampire let out a long, shaky laugh that carried both pride and melancholy. It was not exactly a top-of-the-line setup. When he was alive, the old vampire would have definitely scoffed at these lowlifes. But now everything was different. Times had changed, and the 2 talents in front of him were anything but ordinary. What more could a bored old ghost ask for? "Ah, you sly bastard, you bring me here to chain me to purpose again. You might or might not be skilled in smithing, but you are a conniving little brat, aren't you?" Damon chuckled and then shrugged. "Fine, I will do it, but I'm going to need some materials. My spirit form is not strong enough to continuously teach these younglings. I'm going to need to feed on some things to maintain my appearance and to be able to reach out of them. Also, I'm assuming you're not planning to stay with me here the whole time." "Of course," Damon nodded. "I have other things to do. Otherwise, wouldn't I be learning this from you?" The ghost's face twitched. To hear someone speak like this about smithing made him want to give a couple of slaps to Damon, but knowing everything happening around, the old ghost let it go. "You leaving shouldn't be a problem, but drop by once in a while. Otherwise our connection will grow weaker, and so will my strength. Also, bring some damned real blueprints and recipes, will you? I know of some, but I need some of the current era as well. These kids are working with trash. They needed to be tested with something more difficult, more challenging." Damon smirked faintly. "Don't worry, old man. I'll make sure you have everything you need. You'll have materials, blueprints, and all the toys you want to play with. Just make sure you don't scare the life out of my people." The ghost scoffed. "Scare them? Ha! I'll forge the fear right out of their bones." Damon's lips twitched in amusement. "You look like you're back in your element already." The ghost turned, a nostalgic smile crossing his face. "Back? No, boy. I never left. The forge is eternal." He gestured with his spectral hand, and faint runic embers appeared above each apprentice's station. The glowing sigils twisted and burned like miniature suns before imprinting themselves on the anvils. "There," he said with satisfaction. "Lesson 1. They'll never forget the sound of their mistakes now." Damon raised an eyebrow. "You branded the anvils?" "Correction," he said smugly. "I branded their souls. Every failure will echo back at them until they learn. Nothing forges faster than fully understanding one's failures." Damon chuckled, shaking his head. "Remind me to never let you teach children." "Remind me to never take advice from a brat who treats god-tier forging like a side hobby," the ghost shot back. Damon helplessly shook his head, and did not bother continuing to argue with the old vampire. Instead, he paid attention to the few gasps that sounded across the hall. It looked like the new rune and the new effect finally alerted the many young men to his presence. Hearing the commotion, Silvara appeared from another chamber, and her eyes immediately shifted to Damon. "Everyone continue working. I will talk with you again in a few minutes," she curtly replied, then signaled Damon to follow her to the inner chamber. "Damon," Silvara hesitantly spoke, "how are you? I heard everything that happened. Kate, is she all right?" Damon calmly answered, "She is stable for now, and soon she will be back to her old form." Silvara wanted to talk to him more, but when she saw the look in his eyes, it was clear that he did not want to discuss about this anymore. "I'm sorry. I was useless and unable to help you during the war. Even if I had stepped in, I wouldn't have been of any help. To prevent Light Faction players from joining your side of the war, the system was handing out massive debuffs left and right. Those who joined the enemy side received buffs instead." Damon nodded. He actually did not know something like this happened behind his back, but seeing that the system had compensated him with a mind-blowing reward, he couldn't pair less. Silvara lowered her gaze. "Still, it doesn't sit right with me. I should have done more. I tried to do my best here and get some funds up and ready for your use. We have managed to gather about 50 million gold coins by selling the items forged so far. Please let me transfer it immediately to you." She clenched her fists and then opened the system interface and started typing furiously on it. Damon laughed and then extended his hand to catch her hand. "Wait, keep the gold coins. You probably need it more than me now. I have a few things I need to talk to you about. Also, don't worry about the war. It's already over, and I know you would have helped if you could have." Silvara bitterly smiled. She knew that Damon was simply trying to reassure her, but his words only made her feel even more distant from him. It was as if he never expected anything from her, and that hurt more. Would he be treating her the same way if she were Kate? Silvara bit her lips for thinking like this. She quickly composed herself and went back to her icy, indifferent facade. "Let's talk. Do you have something new for me?" she asked, in a professional tone. Damon then sat down and signaled for her to sit as well. He then turned to the side, and to Silvara's surprise, he was talking to an empty space. "Why don't you reveal yourself now? That would make things easier for me to explain." The air shimmered faintly, and a cold crimson mist began to materialize beside Damon. A moment later, the outline of a tall, spectral figure emerged, vague, regal, and burning faintly with ghostly fire. Silvara's eyes widened slightly as the form solidified enough to reveal the stern face of an old vampire in ornate armor. His eyes glowed like dying embers, filled with centuries of pride and judgment. "Who is that?" Silvara asked, jolting up from her seated position. The spiritual pressure radiating from him wasn't hostile, but it was ancient, older than anything she had ever felt before. The ghost's gaze flicked toward her, and he inclined his head slightly. "So this is the woman running your little mortal forge?" Damon sighed. "Silvara, meet old vampire Ghost, also a Grand Master blacksmith. Old man, meet Silvara, my friend who is helping me out. So you better treat her properly and not simply order her around." The ghost snorted. Damon then explained his plans. Silvara's eyes lit up as she heard more and more. She listened in stunned silence, the pieces clicking into place. "This is brilliant," she gasped in the end. "Everyone would truly thrive under your guidance, Master." She bowed her head in respect. The old ghost nodded in approval. Damon then gave her a bunch of leads once again. These quests should give some interesting materials and blueprints for at least epic-grade items, depending on the degree of completion. These guys shouldn't just be holed up in the smithy. Make sure that they get some outside combat experience once in a while. The old ghost nodded in approval. "You are surprisingly not so dim-witted." Damon ignored the guy, and then continued. "You know, Silvara, you should also take out the other thing." Silvara's eyes widened. Damon did not have to tell twice for her to understand what he was talking about. "Are you sure? It's barely been a month since the game opened, but trust me, we don't have a lot of time. Things are moving fast, and people are making big moves and taking their shot. We need to get our shot in, too. I don't want to lose anything that could give us an edge." Silvara nodded. The old ghost looked curious, wondering what the two of them were talking about. The next second, Silvara took out a scroll from her spatial ring. It was a simple-looking scroll, but when Damon rolled it open, the old vampire looked visibly shocked. "What? How did you two get something like this? This is a powerful cosmic vessel. Only clans with a decent background would have access to something like this. That too only for purchase. To actually have the blueprint. You are truly a lucky woman." Silvara only smiled a little. In truth, it was only because of Damon that she had managed to obtain this. "So what do you think, Master? Is this challenging enough for the young bloods to start working on?" The old ghost chuckled. "Oh, this will do. This will do very well. This can be a good whetstone for shaping my students." "All right then, I would like to see some progress the next time I visit you all." Damon gave a boatload of leads once again. These quests should give some interesting materials and blueprints for at least epic-grade items, depending on the degree of completion. These guys shouldn't just be holed up in the smithy. Make sure that they get some outside combat experience once in a while. The old ghost nodded in approval. "You are surprisingly not so dim-witted." Damon ignored the guy, and then continued. "You know, Silvara, you should also take out the other thing." Silvara's eyes widened. Damon did not have to tell twice for her to understand what he was talking about. "Are you sure?
It's useless hiding in your spatial ring. You might as well bring it out in the open and see if it opens up a few quests. I know it's barely been a month or so since the game opened, but trust me, we don't have a lot of time. Things are moving fast, and people are making big moves and taking their shot. We need to get our shot in too. I don't want to lose anything that could give us an edge." Silvara nodded. The old ghost looked curious, wondering what the two of them were talking about. The next second, Silvara took out a scroll from her spatial ring. It was a simple-looking scroll, but when Damon rolled it open, the old vampire looked visibly shocked. "What? How did you get something like this? This is a powerful cosmic vessel. Only clans with a decent background would have access to something like this. That too only for purchase. To actually have the blueprint, you are truly a lucky woman." Silvara only smiled a little. In truth, it was only because of Damon that she had managed to obtain this. "So, what do you think, Master? Is this challenging enough for the young bloods to start working on?" The old ghost chuckled. "Oh, this will do. This will do very well. This can be a good whetstone for shaping my students. All right then. I would like to see some progress the next time I visit you all." Damon bowed slightly to the ghost and then turned to Silvara. "You don't have to be here the whole time. Now that this old man is here, he will take care of a lot of things. You should focus on your personal growth." Okay, I will." Silvara tried to be as indifferent as possible, but a trace of disappointment flashed across her face. "Ask me whatever you need. If I'm not responding, ask Mark or Kalethorn. They both will arrange things for you." Damon did not linger too much and quickly bid farewell to the two of them before leaving the place. He asked the old ghost to slightly modify his appearance so that it's not too obvious he was a vampire, but Damon was not sure how much the proud ghost would hide his background. He wouldn't be surprised if the next time he came here, the old man ended up converting everyone to bloodlings. But that was a problem for tomorrow. For now he had settled some things, and he was off to a good start. The fact that the old man agreed to mentor students without showing any attitude or partiality towards humans was itself a huge victory. Only time would tell how things would evolve from here. Damon quickly opened up another blood gate, one to his blood hall. Now that this was done, it was time to take care of other important matters. The crowd in the blood hall had somewhat thinned down as most of the main family members moved out either to their respective allocated cities or back to the Crimson Mountains. There were still a lot of prominent figures hanging around the blood hall, but Damon did not bother to talk to any of them. The first thing he did after coming back was head straight to Kate's room and check her condition. He opened the door feeling extremely nervous and anxious when he all of a sudden froze on the spot. Beads of sweat started pouring down on his face. His brain was thinking of many worst-case scenarios as he opened the door, but staring right at him was a new worst-case scenario that he failed to even imagine. Kate was sitting up on the bed. Her cheeks had a lot more color, and her body did not seem as fragile anymore. Damon could even sense a decent amount of mana flow in her body. She was by no means back to normal, but her condition right now was a lot better than he had hoped for. Seeing her like this, with her warm smile and her gentle face, all he wanted to do was rush in and hug her, but instead he stood constipated as his gaze fell on the other woman who was sitting beside her. Aurora also had a warm and gentle smile on her face. She was definitely doing a lot better than Kate, and her condition had already reverted back to her prime, perhaps even stronger than before. It was as if the stress on her soul only ended up strengthening her. The angelic race was truly a scary one. Aurora looked up at Damon with the same serene smile on her face, the one that Kate was wearing. The two women, in fact, looked at him with their eyes full of warmth and affection, but Damon's brain was going crazy at the moment. He had told all sorts of things to each of them individually, and now to find them both together? He gulped. What was he supposed to do? It was truly not his fault. He was a good man.
He just had to say some white lies because of the situation. They shouldn't possibly hold him accountable for that, right? Kate had always been important to him, and now Aurora had clawed her way into his life, becoming equally important. How was he supposed to make the two women understand? He had a feeling that the both of them would beat him up if he even remotely broached the topic. He was in real shit, wasn't he? His eyes darted around the room when he finally noticed Mark, who was sitting silently on the side. Wordlessly, he pleaded with his best friend, but Mark only gave a small smile. The bastard clearly did not care about his plight. He was in some deep thought all on his own. "Fine. Even if you don't want to help me, I will still drag you into this," Damon smiled as he took out the Crimson Heartstone. "Mark, I finally found you. I've been looking everywhere for you." "Huh?" Mark gave him a suspicious stare. "Here, take this. Catch." Damon threw the Crimson Heartstone and Mark instinctively caught it, but once he did, his face changed. He looked utterly shocked. "Dude, what the hell? Why would you throw something like this? Forget that. Why are you giving this to me? Shouldn't you use it?" Kate and Aurora both immediately became curious. "What is it, brother?" Kate asked. Damon walked over to Kate and hugged her lightly with a friendly hug. "It's something to give him a little boost." Mark bitterly smiled. He looked at the crystal again and again and carried it over and handed it to Kate as if it were a priceless treasure. "It's not a little boost. This will help me awaken my bloodline." Kate blinked in surprise, staring at the glowing crimson crystal now resting in her palm. Its surface pulsed softly as though alive, echoing with a heartbeat that wasn't hers. This is really that powerful?" she whispered. Aurora leaned closer, her black golden eyes narrowing slightly as she examined the crystal too. Damon coughed lightly and looked away. "It's really not much." Mark looked at the guy speechlessly. "You're seriously giving it to me?" "Don't think too much about it, idiot. It won't work on me. That's why I'm giving it to you. Otherwise, I would have used it. I'm not some saint, you know." Mark stared at him, his lips parting, words failing to come out for a moment. And then he chuckled. "Damn you. Always dropping stuff like this casually. Fine, I'll take it. But don't regret it when I get stronger than you." "Dream on," Damon grinned. "And thank you for taking care of my sister. I heard from Hinata that you sacrificed a lot to get her the healing potion." Damon once again shook his head. "Dude, stop giving me these good guy titles. You do remember that both Kate and Aurora got hurt in the first place because of me, right? If not me, then who would help them? Also, I didn't lose anything. It was my plan all along to give Hinata what I gave her." Mark stared at Damon for a moment, and then a small wicked smile appeared on his face. "So you don't deserve any thanks, right? You did everything just because—" "Of course," Damon nodded. "All right then, I will leave you three alone. My friend has given me a good opportunity, and I have to use it right away. Besides, I'm sure you three need your privacy and whatnot." Mark laughed and started walking out of the room, patting Damon's back on the way. "Enjoy, bro." Mark's laughter echoed down the hallway as the door clicked shut behind him, leaving Damon standing there surrounded by silence and two very unreadable women. For a moment he contemplated sprinting after his best friend, dragging him back in and forcing him to take the heat. But it was too late now. Damon cleared his throat. "So, great weather outside today, huh?" Sweat dripped from his face as he could clearly see the obvious questions on the two women's faces. "Damon," Aurora said calmly, "we had a long conversation before you arrived about you and what is going on here." More sweat started pouring from his face. "Oh, lovely." He nervously took a step back. "You told me that I was special, that I was the only one whom you cared about," Kate said. Her face became small. "You told me I was irreplaceable," Aurora added. "You told me that I liked your kind of crazy. And you both are. Damon threw up his hands. I wasn't lying. Listen, you know how a father loves all his children. It doesn't matter if he has 2 kids or 4 kids or 8 kids, he loves them all just the same. One kid would never become more important to him than the other. All his kids are the same. He started blabbering the one weird explanation he had thought about a while ago. Kate blinked. What? Her expression hovered somewhere between confusion and offense. Did you just compare us to your children? Damon immediately realized his mistake and raised both hands like a guilty puppy. Wait, no, that came out wrong. I just meant I care about you both equally. Kate's mouth fell open. You're digging your own grave. Aurora folded her arms, eyebrow twitching, and looked at him with an unsettling intensity. Damon backed up another step, nearly tripping on the edge of the rug. Okay, let's reset. New metaphor. Scrap the family thing. Just think of me as a guy caught in a dungeon raid. There were traps and bad choices and some loot I didn't deserve, but I took it anyway. Does that make sense? Damn it, I'm trying. No, you are not. You are not even making any sense anymore. You are just lying to us. Kate's face became angry. Aurora had a similar expression on her face. The two of them stared at him as if he were the worst being in the entire world, and Damon full well knew that he deserved it.
Damon let out a sigh and looked down. I am sorry. I will take full responsibility for my actions. I should have been straight with both of you from the beginning. I shouldn't have made everything so complicated. It was selfish and immature on my part. If you both don't want to see me again or talk to me again after this, I completely understand. I don't deserve either of you. I am sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. Damon did not look up. He was feeling a lot of complicated things at the moment. There was a lot he could have done differently, and now it was already too late. He looked up again, fully expecting to get slapped by both of them before they stormed out of the room. But instead, they were laughing at him? Damon blinked as he watched both Kate and Aurora burst into laughter. Damon, you goof! Kate pulled him closer and hugged him tightly. If we don't talk to you again and leave you, then how are we going to torture you from now on and make you pay for all of your mistakes? She said with a mischievous glint in her eyes. Damon blinked, unable to believe what was happening. And it was not over. Aurora hugged him from the other side. My love, I would never leave you, not in this lifetime, not in many, many lifetimes to come. Our love is for all eternity. Damon stood frozen between the two of them, confusion slowly morphing into stunned disbelief. The two of them had accepted things just like that? Was he dreaming right now? Damon bitterly smiled. Are you guys secretly planning to kill me or something? Kate giggled. You wish it were that mild. Aurora smirked, brushing a strand of black silver gold hair behind her ear. You're just lucky we talked things out before you arrived. If you'd walked in 5 minutes earlier, I might have actually tossed you out the window. Only after I froze your junk, Kate added cheerfully. Damon laughed awkwardly, but even as they teased him, their arms around him stayed firm, warm and real. The affection in their eyes never wavered, and slowly Damon let himself relax. Maybe it wasn't about logic or fairness. Maybe it was just a strange miracle. Two powerful, terrifying women had chosen to forgive him and accept him for everything he was. He let out a long breath and leaned into their embrace. You two are way too good for me. Kate grinned. We know. Aurora kissed him on the cheek. And we're going to make you work so hard to prove you're worth it. Damon smiled, nervous and relieved. That sounds fair. He stood there silently, enjoying the warmth for a while. I am doomed, aren't I? Damn right you are. Kate and Aurora said in perfect sync, grinning like devils. Kate was about to say something else when she suddenly started coughing and wheezing. Both Aurora and Damon immediately helped her get back on the bed and lie down. "Kate, you are not fully recovered yet. Don't push yourself. I am working on getting a better healing potion for you. It's only a matter of time before you are out and about, so until then, please stay here and rest for me." Aurora silently walked out of the room to give the two of them some privacy. Damon looked at her, once again surprised by her actions. He couldn't understand how someone obsessed like her would willingly share him. "She is different, isn't she?" Kate smiled. "I have no idea." "Oh, I do. Mark kept me updated on a lot of things." Damon's eyes widened. His traitorous friend. As if she could read his mind, Kate giggled and pulled him closer, lying on his lap. "He's my brother first, you know." "I am sorry. I did not plan for this to happen, but seeing her—" "I know. You don't have to tell me. I saw her too, didn't I?" "That woman fearlessly threw herself into danger over and over again, all to give you some time. She didn't even care when her soul was being torn into pieces. How could I not see how much she loved you even after all of this?" Damon gently stroked her hair as he calmly listened to her. "Understanding is different, but you didn't have to accept." "Hech, accept being in your harem, you mean?" Kate giggled. I winced at those words. Don't make me sound like some sort of perverted guy collecting girls. I mean, it is the fantasy of many guys, cough cough, including me, I won't deny it, but fantasy is different than reality. I would never expect or ask anything like that from you." Kate laughed softly. "But isn't that exactly what you're doing, Mr. Blood God?" she teased, poking his chest. "All these powerful women falling for your broody charm, and your sexy, 'I'm going to kill you for laying a hand on my woman' eyes?" Her fingers brushed against a lock of his eternally tousled mess of hair. I groaned. "You're not helping my guilt here." Kate smiled up at him, her expression gentler now. "Just shh, you're overthinking. I already told you, I'm fine. I didn't think I would be that kind of woman, but hey, here I am. I love you, you idiot. Even if there are other women in your life, I still love you very much. Please don't ever leave me. I might never be as powerful as them or as useful to you, but I still love you very much." "Now who is the idiot?" He cupped her cheek, his thumb brushing away the tear that had begun to trail without permission. "Don't ever say that. You're already more than I deserve. You're the anchor that reminds me of who I really am. Without you, I'd lose myself." Kate's lips quivered, and for a second her strength faltered. She reached up and clasped his hand, her fingers trembling. "Then promise me. No matter what happens, no matter how many more women enter your life, no matter what this path turns into, promise me you won't forget me. I might be weak, but don't push me aside when things get hard. Let me be there for you. Even if I'm just the quiet one in the background, I still want to walk this path with you." "I promise," Damon said without hesitation. "If there's ever a day I forget you, then that version of me isn't me. He's someone else, and I give you full permission to stab that idiot in the face and bring me back." Kate gave a watery laugh, pulling him into a tight, fragile hug. "Deal. I will stab you right in your stupid smile with a big-ass icicle." Damon smiled against her hair. "I'd expect nothing less from my terrifyingly sweet Kate. And don't say that you're going to be weak. It won't be forever. One opportunity or another will surely come your way, and when that happens, I will help you with everything I have to grab it. We will become stronger together. All right? For now, just rest. There is no rush for you to do anything." Damon leaned down and kissed her gently on the lips, but Kate was not satisfied with just that. "I am not so fragile, you goof." She pulled him closer and kissed him deeply, her fingers curling into his collar like she never wanted to let go. Damon's eyes widened at first, then slowly drifted shut, as he returned the kiss with a soft fierceness that melted all the tension he had been carrying. When they finally broke apart, Kate's forehead rested against his, her breath warm and shallow. "That's better," she whispered. "Now go do your terrifying blood god stuff. But remember, I'll be right here, and I expect a better kiss next time." Damon chuckled, the sound low and genuine. "Better than that? You're demanding woman." Kate grinned, despite her exhaustion. "Damn right I am." Damon stood up, reluctantly letting go of her hand. "Rest well, my sweet idiot." "Bring me something good. You cannot just give the good stuff to my brother." Kate pouted. "Now that I'm in a harem, I expect to be fully spoiled by you." "Duly noted." Damon laughed as he left the room, closing the door gently behind him. The playful smirk faded from his lips. His eyes hardened, his expression changed. "I will make it up to you, Kate." After seeing Kate, Damon walked over to the other room. The door was slightly ajar, and he could see that Arya was busily working with her cauldron, doing something. Riven was assisting her. He did not want to disturb her, so he turned around and left. Aurora was waiting for him at the end of the corridor. "My love, is everything fine with my sister?" Damon's face twitched. They are sisters now. He helplessly smiled and shook his head. "Yes, she is fine. Thanks for looking out for her. You didn't have to do that. You also didn't have to go to such lengths to protect me back there. Aurora smiled and placed a finger on Damon's lips, not letting him speak anymore. "I meant what I said back there. I love you, and I don't care if you have many concubines. I cannot prevent my man from enjoying himself, can I? As long as I am the queen and the others are content being your loyal concubines, I will not complain." Damon wryly smiled. "I don't think Kate would agree to that." "Kate is different. She is my sister. She can also be your queen. I am talking about the others, like that blood witch Elora and that snake woman Erin. Please, hubby, don't pretend otherwise. You know they love you, and I know that you will eventually accept them. But when that time comes, you have to make it clear to them that they will always be concubines. Maybe in time I will examine them and see if they qualify for a promotion, but that will depend on many things. They have to become powerful first. My hubby only deserves the best women. Then they have to be..." Damon's face twitched more and more as he listened to Aurora continue talking what seemed to be some sort of detailed harem setup. She was in a full-on role-playing mode, as if she were in some sort of medieval drama with kings and queens and a court full of concubines. He let her continue for a while, but when she started talking about how it was everyone's duty to satisfy him every night by taking multiple turns and with proper schedules, he quickly held up both his hands. "Maybe we can talk about those things later. Right now, only you matter to me." Aurora immediately broke into a sweet smile. "I love you, hubby. You are always the best." "I try to be," Damon smiled bitterly. "Hubby, you haven't tried my new and improved blood yet. Come drink from me. It's been a while since we shared our love." Then, without any warning, she pulled him into a nearby chamber and launched onto him. "You must be terribly exhausted after all of that fighting. Let me help you relax." She pressed her body against him, her arms wrapping around his waist. Then she tilted her head, exposing her pale throat to him like an offering. The scent of her blood instantly hit him in his core. It was intoxicating, laced with desire and magic. Angelic blood. Every vampire in the vicinity would become frenzied for just a single whiff of the good stuff. Damon hesitated for just a moment. Then his fangs descended as a blood barrier formed around them. He bit down on her neck, pulling her closer. The moment his lips closed around her throat, Aurora let out a gasp, half pleasure, half pain, and clung tighter to him. Her blood hit his tongue like liquid flame. It surged through him, feeding something primal, raw, and buried deep. His fatigue melted, his muscles relaxed, and a terrifying amount of power stirred in his veins. His body wanted the blood. It craved more and more of it. All of it. Damon immediately pulled away. "Aurora, you just recovered from soul damage. This is enough." But the woman in front of him was clearly not satisfied as she looked at him intensely, panting and heaving. Intoxicating blood trickled from her neck, and her stunning body trembled from his touch. Damon gave in to the moment and appeared in front of her again. "Push me against the wall," she muttered breathlessly. Damon chuckled and did it. He also pinned her hands up, getting a loud moan from her. He had once read a weird thing about how girls like this sort of romantic setup, and now that knowledge was coming to his help. He did not mind giving her exactly what she wanted. He held her tightly against the wall and ripped her clothes one after the other. She wasn't wearing anything irreplaceable, so he didn't bother removing them carefully. Soon her pale skin and her trembling breasts were naked and waiting for him. He squeezed them with his free hand, taking one after the other, and he gently bit into them, sucking a little blood as he went. Aurora moaned and shivered, her back arching. Her legs trembled as she clearly reached a peak. Damon did not stop. The woman pulled him closer and closer, and he knew she wanted more. His hand slid down to feel the wetness between her legs. "Shall I continue?" he whispered, and Aurora shivered. "Please don't stop." He lifted her up in one swift motion and tossed her roughly on the bed, getting another moan from her. Then he dominantly held her down and bit her again, this time on her thigh. Aurora moaned again and again as he bit her and sucked her one sensitive area after another. Then he licked the wound, making her shiver even more. The wetness between her legs increased as she peeked over and over again. Damon went up to lick the juices clean, making her shudder once again. With a grin, he pulled himself up and kissed her with the same mouth. "I love the way you taste." Aurora trembled as she kissed him back harder, her tongue dancing with his. Damon was simply saying many of the cheesy, cringy lines he remembered, and she loved it all. Damon did not know when they would be able to spend time like this again, so he decided to go all out for this woman who had been tirelessly working all for him. He wanted to satisfy her and give her everything she wanted. He once again asked her, as his little brother was equally enthusiastic in pleasing her, "Shall I continue?" Aurora shyly burrowed her head into his shoulder. "Yes, please," she begged. Damon did not wait any longer. He went straight in, thrusting all of him into her. Aurora gasped, and for a moment Damon wondered if he had been too rough with her. But the next instant she moaned once again, pulling him even closer, biting her lips and waiting for more. He moved again, slowly at first, and faster as she wanted more and more. The sound of flesh slapping against flesh filled the room. He repeatedly pounded into her, making her eyes roll to the back of her head. Her moans became louder and louder until she collapsed on the bed, her entire body twitching. Seeing her stunningly beautiful, angelic face filled with lust made his little general twitch in satisfaction. Damon collapsed beside her, letting out a long breath. Aurora's slender body immediately curled up next to him. He couldn't help but run his finger gently over the curves of her body as he kissed her forehead. He still couldn't believe it. This was the woman who was once a tyrannical battle queen, and now she lay next to him like an obedient cat. His juices were still dripping out of her, and there were several marks on her body which she didn't seem to mind at all. Damon smiled and kissed her forehead again before starting to get out of bed. She, too, was still recovering, and he did not want to push it too much. In the end, it looked like she was also a shy and gentle girl like Kate. However, just as he stood up, a hand reached up and grabbed him. "Hubby, where are you going?" Aurora looked up at him, shyly, biting her lips, but there was also a stubbornness in her eyes. "Just heading out to take care of some small quests. Why don't you rest? I will be back soon." Aurora shook her head. "I will do those quests for you, so give me some more time." She looked at the blankets shyly and asked. Damon couldn't refuse her. "Do you want to cuddle some more?" He chuckled and sat back in the bed. But to his surprise, the girl shook her head. "No, hubby, I want to do other things. Back when I was in the Angel Kingdom, finishing my class quest, I heard a lot of things from some seniors and sisters." And as she spoke, Aurora slowly got up and sat on top of him. She then moved down and positioned herself right on his general. "I'm not done helping you relax, hubby. Everything you did was all about me. Now I want to do some things for you." A dark yet divine aura suddenly enveloped her as she started slowly moving her hips, her golden black eyes fixated on Damon. Damon had no clue what she was doing or how she was doing it, but his body immediately responded. Everywhere he touched her body, it was like touching fire, and yet his body wanted more and more of it. Pleasure jolted through their connection, and an intense feeling bubbled inside him. His mana flow and his blood flow quickened, heightening everything he was feeling. Was this some sort of dual cultivation technique? He had heard about things like this, but this was the first time he was experiencing one in person, especially with someone who possessed an angelic bloodline like Aurora. The whole experience was out of this world. His gaze swept over the woman's perfect body as she, too, moaned and convulsed with pleasure as she rode faster and faster. When Damon finally walked out of the chamber, he was dizzy. Twinkling stars circled his head, and the world around him looked brighter and more colorful. How many rounds had they gone? He had no idea. He was on a fucking high for the whole ride. The woman was not just crazy in love, she was crazy in everything she did, wild, intense, and absolutely insane. He blinked slowly, still dazed. "I think I died somewhere in the middle and came back as a new man." They probably had to do this more often to see any tangible results, but he did not care about that too much. Usually such dual cultivation techniques helped with stats, and he already had plenty of those. He stopped walking and snapped out of his daze. He turned around, hearing footsteps behind him. Aurora walked towards him with a sweet, loving smile as if she hadn't just done the filthiest things that any man could think of. "Hubby, where are you going?" She tiptoed and gently placed a kiss on Damon's cheek. Damon's general instantly became hard again, wanting her badly. Damon shook his head and snapped out of it. If he was not careful, she was going to make him completely addicted to her. "You are a dangerous woman," he smiled bitterly. She beamed proudly. "Thank you, hubby." I raised an eyebrow. That was not a compliment. She only giggled, looping her arm around his with a cute, innocent smile on her face. "Quests," she repeated. "Give them to me. I'll kill, gather, burn, enchant, whatever you need. Just say the word. You know I will do anything for you." Damon exhaled, trying to ground himself. "Okay, here you go. I have, some other things to take care of, so I will leave these to you." Aurora pouted for a moment. "I thought we were doing them together." She pressed against him and batted her eyelashes. Something so obvious shouldn't be working, but it was. Damon took a moment before he flicked the woman's forehead with his fingers. "Stop trying to mess with me, will you?" Aurora rubbed her forehead with an exaggerated pout. "That hurt, hubby." Damon laughed. "I doubt it." He already started walking away before she could start round 2 of seduction disguised as cuteness. Get the quests done, troublemaker. Okay, I need some attention after that, hubby. Aurora giggled and took out a teleportation scroll from her spatial ring and activated it. Hubby, one more thing. Can't you get rid of that egg somehow? I hate it. It's so awkward and uncomfortable. Aurora huffed, puffing out her cheeks like a spoiled princess before she disappeared. Damon could only laugh at her antics. He was glad that everything had turned out well in the end, even though it was touch and go for a while there. His eyes turned cold as he thought about the people responsible for everything. They didn't just fuck with him once, but they chose to do it 2 times, even after the lesson he had taught them with the Abyssal Zone. But he couldn't blame them. The mistake had always been on his part. He was the one who had misjudged the true depth of their power. He wouldn't be careless and overconfident this time around. His next blow would be one they would never recover from. This time, Aurora rubbed her forehead with an exaggerated pout. "That hurt, hubby?" Damon laughed. "I doubt it." He already started walking away before she could start round 2 of seduction disguised as cuteness. Get the quests done, troublemaker. Okay, I need some attention after that, hubby. Aurora giggled and took out a teleportation scroll from her spatial ring and activated it. Hubby, one more thing. Can't you get rid of that egg somehow? I hate it. It's so awkward and uncomfortable. Aurora huffed, puffing out her cheeks like a spoiled princess before she disappeared. Damon could only laugh at her antics. He was glad that everything had turned out well in the end, even though it was touch and go for a while there. His eyes turned cold as he thought about the people responsible for everything. They didn't just fuck with him once, but they chose to do it 2 times, even after the lesson he had taught them with the Abyssal Zone. But he couldn't blame them. The mistake had always been on his part. He was the one who had misjudged the true depth of their power. He wouldn't be careless and overconfident this time around. His next blow would be one they would never recover from. This time he would first understand more about his enemies before he moved to erase them completely from the game and from the real world. There was no need to leave any loose ends. First, he needed to solve the issue of the soul attacks. He had to build up his soul strength one way or the other. Before approaching the vampire main families about this topic, there was one more person whom he wanted to meet, his fiancée, the elven princess, Lyrae. He had already asked the elven girl about soul strengthening, and he had not gotten any response from her. But now that he had evolved again, he wanted to try one more time. In his last life, Damon had heard many rumors about elves being strong in several aspects. Surely they had their version of soul techniques. He opened his system interface and called for Kale Thorn. "Can you bring her over here?" He hadn't seen Green Eyes in a while and wondered how the elven girl was doing. There was also another reason. He wanted her to meet his Lyrae. Maybe the girl would be more at ease with someone of her same race. He needed to talk to Lyrae about many things, and while he did that, he might as well try finding out more about the elven girl. "Are you sure you don't know anything about her, Bloodrain?" Damon asked the weapon spirit again. Bloodrain decisively said no. "I only know that she has a remarkable fate, my liege. It's just a feeling I got after I saw her in the slave auction." "Okay," Damon nodded and took out Lyrae's token. He activated the token and waited. Surprisingly, unlike usual, there was no activity around the token and Lyrae did not appear immediately. Damon frowned. Did someone target her too? He had kept everything about her a complete secret, but then again, she did help get his family released. Maybe the main families took a swing at her while he was busy in the war. Fuck. Damon knew he needed to find out immediately what happened. He didn't wait another second. He remembered the Cerulean city very well and immediately opened up a portal for it using Bloodgate. Kale Thorn appeared with the elven girl, and Damon brought the 2 of them with him as they all vanished from the Blood Hall through the portal. They emerged on the outskirts of Cerulean City the next moment. The city hadn't changed much. Tall spires carved from enchanted sapphire stone gleamed faintly in the waning sunlight, and canals of sparkling water still flowed beneath the bridges.
Nothing seemed out of place at all. There are absolutely no signs of disturbance. Damon narrowed his eyes as he observed everything and walked through the city gates. His amulet was still working, his aura was contained, and no one suspected a thing as he casually strolled into the city. Everything inside the city seems to be normal, so there should be something going on in the royal kingdom, Damon frowned as he started walking in the direction of the royal palace. The palace soon came into view, perched upon a rise and flanked by ancient trees whose branches shimmered with colorful foliage. At first glance it looked like a scene from a painting. There were elegant towers woven with gold-threaded ivy, crystal bridges arched over clear blue pools, and banners fluttering with the sigil of the crown. More notably, guards with the royal uniform patrolled everywhere. This was a kingdom capital city, a little different than normal cities. There were a lot more guards and security everywhere. Not just that, but the city itself was a bigger place with more amenities and a first-class market and auction house. Damon had directly walked over to the palace using a shortcut he knew. Otherwise, he would have been drowned in the crowd of the public square. However, this was the easy part. Now, to get into the palace, especially if there was something going on, he needed some sort of leverage. I knew exactly what item to use. Damon walked over to one of the guards and spoke. "I am here to meet Princess Liray. I have come back with an item she ordered me to bring." But however, the guard only shook his head. "We were given orders not to disturb the princess," he bluntly replied. "No visitors are to be allowed without explicit royal summons." Damon smiled and took out Luray's personal token. "The princess asked me to come meet her no matter what. This is something of extreme importance." Normally, the token should have granted him entry, but the guard's face only became more hostile. "Didn't I already ask you to get lost?" Damon still did not give up and finally took out a small pouch. Inside, there were 5 shimmering gems, all emerald in color. This was something he had picked up from the abyssal zone from one of the guys he had grave-camped and killed repeatedly. It was a set of 5 gems that, when incorporated in a weapon, could give a boost as high as 100%, but it has to be compatible. Only someone like Liray could bring out its full effect. The guard's eyes shone with greed as soon as he saw the gemstones. Even C-ranked experts would covet something like this, and the guard was only a D-ranked patrol guard. He gulped, as if he was watching a top-tier naked beauty, and his hand was twitching to grab the item. Damon smiled. Thankfully, he had approached the right guard. This one seemed to have the common sense to know what was what. "Please, come this way. I am still not able to directly escort you to the princess, but I can inform the royal palace head guard, and he can definitely give you more information." Damon nodded with a polite smile. He followed the guard and ended up in a waiting chamber where he was left alone. He did not bring Calethorn and the elven girl with him just yet. He needed to know what was happening first. Things would have been a lot easier if he had the reputation points, but he was fresh out of those, from having used everything in the Blood Hall battle buffs. Though he had a feeling, even with his reputation points, things would have gotten tricky anyway. Soon the royal palace headguard arrived, and before even addressing Damon, the man's eyes first went to the set of gemstones. These are, indeed, emerald starstones. Then the guard finally looked at Damon, his expression sharp. "You said the princess requested these from you?" "That's right," Damon replied evenly. "She asked me to retrieve them during a prior assignment. I've returned to deliver them in person." He didn't flinch under the headguard's scrutinizing stare and spoke normally. The headguard was a C-ranked expert, and the man seemed to know more things than the patrol guards outside. He gave a little bit more information to Damon. "Her Highness has been preoccupied lately. She is too busy to leave her quarters. Whatever business you have with her, it will have to wait until I confirm your story. I also need to get the approval of His Highness the King." Damon's expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed just slightly.
The mention of the king's involvement sent up another red flag. If even minor meetings now required royal approval, something had definitely shifted in the political atmosphere of the palace. "I understand," Damon said calmly. "Take your time. I'll wait." He leaned back slightly in the chair, exuding patience he didn't feel. Inside, he was already constructing half a dozen possible plans, contingencies, and worst-case scenarios. The head guard gave a short nod. "Wait here. Do not leave this room." His tone was polite, but the implied warning was clear. The head guard then left the room, leaving Damon once again alone. This time, however, Damon did not sit simply. He stood up, walked out, and took a stroll along the long corridors, not specifically going anywhere. The first thing he noticed was the decorations, all around. The entire palace, even the outer parts, seemed to be grandly decorated as if preparing for a celebration or a high-profile ceremony. Turquoise silk banners embroidered with silver leaves fluttered faintly from the vaulted ceilings. Crystal lamps lined the walls, glowing with soft manna light. There were fresh bouquets of enchanted forest lilies in every corner. Damon's frown deepened. This wasn't the decor for a seasonal festival. This was something else. A coronation? A royal engagement? Or worse, a political marriage. Then, everything clicked into place. Lorraine was probably getting engaged or married to someone else. With Damon's heightened senses, it only took a minute to confirm his theory. He overheard two maids whispering and chatting behind a pillar. "The princess hasn't left her quarters in many days, and they say she was crying last night again. The king always used to dote on her, but this time he is completely ignoring her wishes, especially getting her married to a tyrant like that." "Don't blame His Highness. He did not have much choice. You know our kingdom is currently weak. We lost a lot in the battle against the elves. We need Prince Gerald's help if we're going to defend against the vampires. Do you know what happened to the men and women in the cities captured by the vampires?" Damon quickly made a decision. He did not need to hear anything more. Things were moving too fast. His actions in one part of the continent were affecting things in the other areas like a domino. Ideally, he would have had more time to deal with a situation like this. He would have introduced himself formally to the king and then performed some meritorious deeds and further upped his reputation points before talking about the engagement. Then it could have evolved into some unique quest and a city lordship. But now everything had changed because of the very thing he had done. It looked like cities everywhere and entire kingdoms were on high alert for the vampire takeover. There was a huge war brewing, and everyone was making their moves to make sure that they were on the winning side. After all, a war between the light faction and dark faction is not a simple thing. Damon was probably losing a lot because of this butterfly effect from having conquered the cities around Neira. But he didn't care. These things were bound to happen the moment he made any major move. There was simply no other way. Instead of thinking about these consequences, he needed to work on the solution to his problems.